Lord of Mysteries, Amon, I'm here to steal your throne by Zhi Chi Rou Zong. Chapter 76-100. When we first met, you subtly asked me if my study of Hermes was because I had realized the existence of Beyonder powers in this world, Kornli said. Your answer was also very interesting. Mr. Azek narrowed his eyes slightly. Humanity's desire for knowledge stems from instinct, and it is also a manifestation of human exploratory spirit. If I remember correctly, that was the sentence written on the flyleaf of Introduction to Hermes. Are you a Beyonder? Yes. Kornli stood up and made a gesture of invitation. The two of them rose and slowly strolled along the river, like a senior guiding a junior. Before the incident with Naya and Archie, I had already become a Beyonder. By the way, I work with your student, Klein. That explains the long, thin line in his destiny, Mr. Azek said with a smile. You can see the destinies between people. Seeing and interpreting are two different things, Mr. Azek said. There's a familiar mark in your destiny, which should be Klein's, but there are also two thick, interwoven lines within it that I dare not rashly interpret. I know one of them should be Madame Diana's, and I don't know whose the other one is. Since you've entered that circle, I hope you can help me with a favor. I feel that every once in a while, I lose a part of my memory. So if you're solving a case, or encounter anything related to me, perhaps you could tell me. I'll provide a certain reward within my capabilities. Unknowingly, the two had already left the campus and arrived at a Bicro family cafe. Tired from walking, they exchanged glances and walked in, ordering 2 cups of coffee at the innermost booth. In my last segment of memory, I was once a history professor at Backlund University, but during a routine tour, I seemed to have fallen asleep, and when I woke up again, everything around me had changed. Even the building next to it in my memory had half collapsed. Although I still have my identification, how do you explain a professor who is 137 years old yet still looks like someone in their 30s? I left Backlund and came to Tingen City. Teaching history seems to be what I'm best at. Many things feel like they happened around me, in my vicinity. I can remember the small habits of those so-called historical figures, or what their mistresses looked like. Mr. Azek spread his hands. I remember many things, but I've forgotten my own existence. I should have had several wives, 4 or 5, and a few children as well. At least 2 of them were girls. In my memory, there are scenes of making toys for them, and also of riding horses with my children galloping across the grassland. Pardon my directness, but since you know your origins are unclear, have you tried to find the you from your memories yourself? Kornli asked, stirring the coffee spoon in his cup. I fear death, I dread danger. If I were to die, I would lose even these precious memories, Mr. Azek sighed. Of course, I'll help, Kornli nodded. You are a respected history instructor, and I still have many questions to ask you. Counting this ritual dagger, that's 2 favors, Mr. Azek looked at Kornli sincerely. I don't even know how to repay this favor. No, you will have a chance. You're welcome, Kornli said. I have a premonition that regarding your background, there might be some answers within a few months. I hope so, Mr. Azek nodded. After this heart-to-heart conversation with Mr. Azek, Kornli's mood, which had been somewhat poor due to his inability to make talismans, improved significantly. After finishing his coffee, he bid farewell to Mr. Azek and returned to the divination club. Good afternoon, Mr. Kornli, you haven't been here for a few days, Angelica said as she watched Kornli walk in. Still coffee? Yes, Kornli nodded and hung his hat on the coat rack. Anything new lately? I'm afraid the biggest thing that's happened here is Linerwusi's fraud case, Angelica said, seeing that no one else was coming in. She brought her coffee and sat next to Kornli. Is what the newspaper says true? I'm not sure. Kornli was about to pick up the newspaper when he saw Angelica gently place the coffee she was holding next to him, her eyes full of the expression, "You're just humoring me." When you and Klein went into the citrine room last time, that police officer went too, Officer Haywood. I saw you two talking in low voices in the citrine room. Did you give the police department the clue? You and Mr. Klein are both private detectives, right? Angelica's eyes were full of excitement. Yes, you found us out. Kornli raised his hands helplessly. That's right, we are both private detectives. This place is actually where we find clients and indulge some of our mysticism hobbies. I knew it. Angelica, looking satisfied, got up and left. Just as Kornli was about to pick up today's newspaper, he saw Klein walk in from outside. Angelica's, "I know everything," expression made her eyes towards Klein sparkle with a different kind of light. What's wrong with Miss Angelica? Klein walked over and sat on the sofa next to Kornli, speaking softly to him. She saw us talking with Officer Haywood in the citrine room that day. In her mind, we are both private detectives, Kornli replied softly. She's happy now that only she knows this secret. Klein was startled. Miss Angelica happened to bring over red tea, and her right hand intentionally or unintentionally brushed against his shoulder, which gave him a different feeling. By the way, she might have a crush on you, Kornli muttered softly, his expression unchanged. Klein. Mr. Klein, someone needs a divination from you. Miss Angelica's voice came to Klein's ears again. The latter, feigning composure, turned around and saw Gracies, who had sought divination from him last time, walking over with a woman in her 30s wearing a blue, stand-collar long dress. Clearly, they were there for him. Good afternoon, you're finally here, Mr. Klein, Gracies shook Klein's hand warmly. I've been waiting for you here for 3 days. What do you need my help with today? Klein asked with a smile, taking a sip of his black tea. With 2 people coming for divination, he needed to clear his throat first, it might be quite a strain on his voice soon. As you know, Mr. Linnerwusi's incident caused quite a stir. Gracies greeted Kornli, who was sitting nearby, and then sat directly on the sofa opposite Klein. The lady beside him was frowning, looking as if she had never asked for a divination before. Then, the topaz room it is. Klein stood up. We can discuss it in detail there. Unbelievable, the price for your divination is still 8 pence. Gracies stood up with a smile and followed Klein into the topaz room with the lady. Klein hasn't changed the price yet. Kornli stood up, went to Angelica, raised Klein's divination price to 1 sol, then silently returned to continue reading his newspaper. Are you really out of options? 10 minutes later, Gracies and the lady walked out of the topaz room, looking at Klein with expectant eyes. As you just saw, whether it was the astrolabe or the star numbers, the results were the same. The timing you are currently in is precisely at a crossroads. What you need is waiting, patience, to hope for the arrival of sunlight. I understand. The lady Gracies brought, Ms. Christina, nodded. Can you divine Linnerwusi's whereabouts? That would be very difficult. Klein sat down on the sofa. He went to great lengths to set up a huge scam, so any name, address, residence, or personal item he left behind could be fake. I even doubt if he left any personal items at all, Kornli interjected from the side. There are private detectives in this world, you know. Gracies sighed. Even so, I still hope to find that guy as soon as possible. I only invested 50 gold pounds, which isn't too much for me, but Christina invested 150 gold pounds, which is all her savings. Kornli and Klein exchanged a glance. Based on Klein's weekly salary of 6 gold pounds, he could save 150 gold pounds in just half a year if he didn't eat or drink. If he was proficient in reimbursement studies, it might not even take half a year. In this regard, the captain always turned a blind eye. I do have a few things Linnerwusi left behind. Christina bit her lip gently. Does his child count? Klein. Excuse me, did you say a child? Klein's eyes widened. That kind of human infant with 4 limbs that can move. Kornli chuckled. Unless there's another word in Lonus that can replace child, I believe you two mean the same thing. Christina waved her hand, and a woman with a smooth forehead, long golden hair, and large eyes very similar to Christina's walked in from the doorway, looking at Klein and Kornli with curious eyes. God of despair above. Kornli stared unceremoniously at his niece, Megor, as Christina called her, and began to introduce their relationship to the others present. I can now look directly at Megor and the child in her belly, which proves that our dear god of despair still doesn't have the power to influence my decisions. Now, if I just go up and kill Megor with one knife, Tingen City will be safe. Kornli licked his lips, his right hand unconsciously touching the dagger at his waist. Ouch! Megor groaned softly, then smiled apologetically. I'm sorry, this is a woman's daily reaction. I think it's better to go outside and get some fresh air. After saying this, she stood up, nodded to everyone, and walked out alone. The child of the god of despair was indeed very alert. It was just a thought from him, and the other party had already reacted. I'm very sorry, an unborn child is a life after all. Klein shook his head. It cannot be used as a subject for divination. If it were an already born child, I would indeed have a way to use him to divine Linerwusi's general whereabouts, but unfortunately, this would require waiting several months. This might be the manifestation of the previous divination result. Patience, waiting, perseverance, no longer being greedy, and then ushering in a turning point and seeing the sunlight. No, if he comes out, we're all dead. Don't you have anything else, like his clothes or personal belongings? Klein asked softly, seeing the despair in their eyes. Linerwusi gave Megor a necklace before he left, would that work? Christina asked hopefully. Such an item needs to have been worn by him for a period of time to be effective. Are you planning to keep this child? Klein asked softly. I don't know what your beliefs are, but she is Linerwusi's descendant, eh? The latter half of the sentence was left unsaid. A swindler's descendant, Christina said softly. He not only deceived Megor's feelings but also defrauded over 100 people and over 10,000 gold pounds. And for who knows how many years in the future, the child might not even have a chance to see his father. I'm quite sure the child won't have that chance. I tried to persuade her, but this silly girl insisted on having this child. The only way is to let him inherit our surname and not let anyone else know who his biological father is. We will go look for his personal belongings. Thank you very much. Christina pulled out a handkerchief to wipe her tears, then stood up to say goodbye. What a pitiful person, Klein sighed. What do you think, Kornli? No thoughts. Kornli put down his newspaper. Didn't you see the newspaper? Those who were scammed have offered a reward of 100 gold pounds for Linerwusi's whereabouts. How unlikely do you think it is that he hasn't been caught or discovered yet? Although all newspapers have his photo, and his appearance is known to all LotM people, there is more than one way to change one's appearance. Or, going to Masik or Fainapotter Kingdom is also an option. The southern East Balam, or the Rhosid Islands, are all good choices. You're right. Klein nodded. This 100 gold pounds is indeed not easy to earn. Although 100 gold pounds isn't easy to earn, you have an even better way. Kornli gestured towards the door. I changed your divination price to 1 soul. Klein's eyes lit up. Are you looking for Mr. Klein for a divination? This way, please. Angelica's voice reached Klein's ears. Good luck to you. Kornli smiled. The next morning, Klein arrived at the office on time. As soon as he got to his desk, Kornli handed him an open copy of the second page of the Tingen City Honest Man newspaper. Klein took the newspaper. It read in large font, the police department is now offering a reward of 200 gold pounds for anyone who can provide information on Linerwusi's whereabouts. An additional 200 gold pounds will be given to anyone who can directly capture him and deliver him to the police station. Adding the victim's reward, Linerwusi's bounty has reached 500 gold pounds. Klein inhaled. What an enviable amount. It seems our seer is also very tempted by this reward. Luo Yao, opposite him, smiled. If you have any of his personal belongings, you can give it a try. Yesterday, Linerwusi's family came looking for him. Kornli looked at Klein. Where did they live again? No. 42 Gerald Street, South District, not far from here, Klein answered smoothly. Understood. Klein, go down to the alchemy room. The person from the Holy Cathedral has arrived. Captain Dunn walked into the team member's office. Go by yourself. The person in charge of this assessment is Cresta Sesima, one of the 9 senior deacons of the Nighthawks. It seems the Holy Cathedral values you greatly. The 13 archbishops and 9 senior deacons were the high-ranking officials of the church in the usual sense. It was said that many of them were powerful beyonders of high sequence. Ah, I've only advanced to clown. Why would the Holy Cathedral value me so much? Don't be nervous. Dunn took out his pipe and wiped it with a cloth. I just met him and chatted for a bit. He's very amiable and not as difficult to talk to as I imagined. Goddess's sword, Cresta Sessima, a sequence 5 spirit warlock. Kornli thought to himself. Go, Dunn said, it's not our style to keep a senior deacon waiting. Captain, Klein nodded, stood up, high-fived Kornli opposite him, and turned to leave. Do you think Klein will pass the Holy Cathedral's test this time? Ziga looked at the poetry collection in her hand. Kornli remembered she had been thinking for half an hour without moving a single word. Why are you nervous? Leonard smiled and pointed at Kornli. Before the two of them joined the team, we encountered a Beander incident on average every 2 months, but since they successively joined, the number of incidents we've encountered has multiplied. According to Emperor Rosal, this is the wheel of history rolling again with the appearance of the protagonist. I'm the protagonist. Kornli looked at Leonard amusedly. I'd rather be a mastermind behind the scenes, inadvertently. He made a pickpocketing gesture, which made everyone burst into laughter. All right, Klein came up from downstairs, you all go down one by one. Deacon Cresta wants to chat with each of you. Give us a hint, what is it about? Ziga stood up and asked in a low voice. What I told you a few days ago, Klein also whispered, swear not to reveal it. It's about the acting method. Although the sound was low, it was enough for everyone in the room to hear. Everyone went down one by one, and then quickly came up, gently patting Klein's shoulder as they passed by. This was their thanks for the acting method that he had summarized. Kornli, you're the last one. Leonard came in from the doorway, go. Kornli nodded and went down to the alchemy room. A man in his 30s, wearing a black trench coat and a white shirt, sat on a chair behind a long table. His golden brown hair and dark green eyes seemed to see through everything. His shirt collar stood high, hiding his chin in the shadows. Good morning, Deacon Cresta. Good morning, Mr. Kornli White. Cresta nodded, your team's relationship is truly good. I didn't expect Mr. Klein Moretti to reveal the acting method, one of the church's most important secrets, to you. Secret. A hint of confusion appeared in Kornli's eyes. That's right. Summarizing this method involved generations of church personnel. Finally, after the efforts of several generations, the method of how to reduce the risks of the potion was perfectly summarized. But now, everyone in your team already knows it, Cresta smiled. As a senior deacon of the church, I have always trusted the Nighthawks team. After all, I also came from the Nighthawks and rose to this position step by step. But regarding this secret of the church, I need you to swear in the name of the Evernight Goddess that this secret can only be spread among the current members of your team. Even if new people join, it cannot be revealed. I understand, Kornli nodded. Very well, I need you to swear on the holy relic. Cresta picked up the box at his feet and opened it in front of Kornli. Inside was a pure white bone sword about 1 meter long. The short sword quietly emitted a pure white, lustrous glow, like the moon hanging high in the deep night, comforting people's hearts, like a lighthouse marking the direction in a storm. I heard your title is Goddess's Sword. Is it related to this sword? Kornli asked. You could say that, Cresta smiled. Holy artifacts have their own consciousness and temper. When I was a Sequence 6 Soul Assurer, I fortunately gained the recognition of this weapon in a battle, and only then did the church allow me to carry it with me for self-defense. What do I need to do? Place your hand on this weapon. Cresta stood up, repeat after me. Evernight Goddess, more exalted than the cosmos, more ancient than eternity. I swear to you with my true name and my spirituality. I, Kornli White, from now on, will absolutely not reveal the relevant details of the acting method to anyone who does not know it. Should I violate this, I will accept your punishment. Please witness my oath. Evernight Goddess, more exalted than the cosmos, more ancient than eternity, As soon as Kornli uttered the first sentence, the goddess's sword flashed violently with white light. The door of the alchemy room was closed by a huge force, and the items on the shelves inside the room slowly vibrated. Cresta was at a loss for words for a moment. His exclusive goddess's sword broke free from his control, slowly floating in the air. Its handle, made entirely of white bone, rubbed affectionately against Kornli's shoulder, danced a flourish in the air, and forcibly hung itself at Kornli's waist. A black shroud enveloped Kornli from behind, forming a black cloak. The black hood automatically pulled over Kornli's head, and 2 points of starlight flickered from within the hood, gazing at Cresta like the goddess's eyes. "Oh my god, you are her favored one." Cresta took a step back, knelt on one knee, and saluted Kornli. This is a bit awkward. It should be that when I went to the night goddess church to pray a few days ago, a trace of the evernight goddess's aura, remaining in my body after she responded to my prayer, was captured by this short sword, which led to the goddess's sword's misunderstanding. But, it's not really a misunderstanding, is it? This cloak is good, quite suitable for me. Rise. Kornli slightly raised his head, imitating the manner of important figures, his nose slightly elevated, his nostrils pointed at Cresta, who was kneeling before him. This posture demands too much from the neck. I won't be able to adapt to it anytime soon. As you command. Cresta stood up and bowed slightly to Kornli, like a subordinate addressing a superior. My identity is an absolute secret, do not tell anyone. Kornli tapped the chair, and Cresta, in a state of trepidation, sat down on the chair, looking at Kornli opposite him. The Evernight goddess sent me here, and there are other tasks. Yes, I will obey all your commands, Cresta nodded. Kornli stroked the goddess's sword, and the latter emitted crisp sounds in Kornli's hand, and thoughts of wanting to follow Kornli in the future flashed in Kornli's mind. Not yet, Kornli shook his head, you are too conspicuous right now, and I am still only a sequence 9, carrying you might attract the attention of other factions. The goddess's sword let out a series of whimpering sounds in Kornli's mind, seemingly reluctant to part but not wanting to go against Kornli's wishes. Kornli stroked the hilt twice more, then handed the goddess's sword back to Cresta, and the cloak and hood on his body vanished. Keep it for me for now, Kornli smiled, this weapon is temporarily lent to you for use. Yes, Cresta replied with a bitter taste in his mouth. What kind of situation is this? He only came to check on Klein Moretti's progress, but he didn't expect a devotee of the Evernight goddess to be hidden here. The ownership of his personal weapon was even gone. Every time he used the goddess's sword in the future, a voice would say in his mind, "It's borrowed, it's borrowed, it's borrowed. If I take this weapon, I believe the Evernight goddess will compensate you with another weapon," Kornli said. Since his identity as a devotee has been confirmed, he might as well give him a big promise to compensate him psychologically. The Night Goddess Church is a large organization, they wouldn't just have one holy artifact, would they? Thank you for considering me, Cresta nodded in thanks. Give me your contact information, I will contact you if needed. Cresta took out a pen and notebook from his in my arms, wrote down a telegram number, tore it off, and handed it to Kornli with both hands. This is the private telegram of a Nighthawks team under my command. I usually work there, so if you send a telegram, I can see it directly. There's something I want to ask you. Does the Holy Hall have the subsequent potion formulas for the Marauder sequence? I'm afraid not, Cresta shook his head. Regarding this sequence, we don't know much more than you do, but surely the Evernight goddess has her reasons for having you choose this sequence. Exactly, and I can't tell you that reason right now. I understand, Kornli nodded. One last thing, we need to get our story straight, we can't let what just happened be known to the higher-ups. Cresta nodded in admiration. As expected of a devotee of the Evernight goddess, he thinks things through more than he does. 5 minutes later, Kornli opened the alchemy room door and returned to the team's room upstairs. Klein looked at Kornli. What just happened? We all heard the alchemy room door close downstairs. After that, Kornli made a gesture of holding a holy sword with his right hand. Klein nodded. Mr. Cresta was going to directly prepare the potion for you. While I was watching, I accidentally broke an empty bottle on a shelf, and I just finished cleaning it up. You mean? Klein's eyes widened, the clown potion is already prepared. Go on, our future clown. I can't wait to see what you'll be like after you advance, Kornli said. Klein stood up and, under the envious gazes of everyone, went downstairs to the alchemy room again. A broom and dustpan were in a corner of the alchemy room, and the fragments of empty bottles inside were very conspicuous. Very good, you're here, Cresta pointed to the seat opposite, you sit down first. I haven't prepared a potion in a while, so I might be a bit rusty. May I try? Klein asked. I'm not doubting your technique, it's just that, as a seer, I've already mastered some mysticism knowledge. The next time I prepare a potion, I can't always rely on your help. In that case, I'll give you the potion ingredients, Cresta said, please wait a moment. He turned sideways, blocking Klein's view with his body, and took out Beander items one by one from the box containing the goddess's sword, then turned back again. You can begin. Main ingredients: crystallized horn of an adult Honich's gray mountain goat, a complete human-faced rose. Auxiliary ingredients: 80 milliliters of pure water, 5 drops of mandrake juice, 7 grams of black-edged sunflower powder, 10 grams of golden cloak grass powder, 3 drops of poisonous hemlock juice. Klein pondered for a few seconds, matching the items in front of him with the formula in his memory. He found a small pot nearby, took a deep breath, and began to add the ingredients. Successful. Klein looked at the liquid in the small pot and poured it into a clean beaker. The liquid was dyed gold, yellow, and red, they intertwined but were exceptionally clear. Gurgle, gurgle, bubbles rolled and surged within the liquid, but they couldn't escape, only to burst silently. I don't see any problems with your preparation, Cresta said, you can take it. No, I need to divine first. Klein slowly suspended the citrine in his left hand over the liquid in the cup, silently chanting in his mind, this potion has a problem. This potion has a problem. This potion has a problem. After 7 times, the citrine slowly moved above the cup, with very little rotation. Taking a potion always carries the risk of losing control, but this degree of movement indicates that the risk is very small. As expected of a seer, you really have a specialized approach to utilizing mysticism. Cresta's lips curved into a slight smile. Klein no longer hesitated, opened his mouth, and drank the potion in the cup. A 3-colored light appeared before his eyes, like overlapping light spheres, slowly entering a meditative state, gradually getting rid of the slight overflow of spirituality and the slightly uncontrolled situation. He was finally a clown. Congratulations, Cresta said with a slight smile in his eyes. It's quieter here, perfect for you to practice your newest skill. Please inform your captain that my mission is complete. I look forward to meeting him in the cathedral next time. Does this mean the captain can get a promotion? May the goddess bless you. Cresta nodded to Klein, closed the box with both hands, and walked past Klein towards the nearby stairs, carrying the box. Praise the goddess. Klein made the sign of the crimson moon on his chest, watching Cresta's steady footsteps leave the team. He couldn't help but practice his sense of balance for a while before returning to the captain's office. You're in excellent condition, not at all like someone who just consumed a Beander characteristic. Captain Dunn took a deep puff from his pipe, then placed the extinguished pipe on the table and gently tapped it twice. This might be because of already completely digested the Beander characteristic. Klein looked at Captain Dunn. Sir Cresta said he hopes to meet you in the cathedral next time. Is this because you might be getting a promotion? You don't smoke, so you probably don't know how to pack a pipe, Captain Dunn said, pulling out a silver tobacco tin from his pocket. He opened it and pinched a small amount of tobacco with 3 fingers, gently stuffing it into the pipe. Klein quietly watched every one of the captain's movements. The most crucial part is the last step, Captain Dunn said with a smile, gently pressing down on the tobacco in the pipe with his thumb. That last press, it can't be too tight, otherwise the tobacco will burn too slowly, and you won't enjoy the wonderful taste of the tobacco. But if it's too loose, the tobacco will burn out after only a few puffs, and you won't be able to enjoy the tobacco flavor for long, Dunn chuckled. This step is very important, but it takes several years to master. I've been in this position for a long time. 13 months ago, I received notice from the cathedral that I had the opportunity to return to Backlund, to manage a brand new Nighthawks team under Sir Cresta, or to directly become a Red Glove, a team member with independent investigative authority. But this Tingen team was, after all, brought up by me. Every single person is so outstanding. Captain Dunn took a satisfying puff from his pipe. Leonard could have been promoted to a nightmare 4 months ago, but he chose not to. I will respect his decision. Ziga, her dream is to become a poet. Fry wants to be a painter. Luo Yao also has his own ideas. If I were here, each of them would slowly progress in pursuing their dreams. Letting everyone grow in a relaxed environment, the captain is truly a good person. I understand, Captain. Klein looked at Captain Dunn with admiration. According to the rules, you can choose to rest today. You can go out for a good lunch with everyone at noon, Captain Dunn said. After all, everyone needs to thank you for discovering the secret of the acting method. Leonard just came in and represented everyone's wishes. This time, the cost will be entirely borne by them. There's such a good thing. Klein never refused an opportunity for a gathering. At noon, I've asked Kornli to reserve a table at the Nicholson family restaurant, nearby. Although we can't drink too much, a simple celebration is fine. In a moment, I'll go to the church and invite a priest to come and help us guard the Chinese gate for 2 or 3 hours. It's rare for the captain's thoughts to be so clear today. Anything else? Captain Dunn looked at Klein, setting down the pipe he had just brought to his mouth. Judging from Klein's expression across from him, he must have forgotten something important again. What crucial thing did I forget again? Captain, after my promotion this time, will there be a raise? Klein blinked. I heard Kornli say that after every promotion, there will be a certain increase in weekly salary. Oh, that's what it was. Dunn shook his head. You're right. Starting next week, your weekly salary will increase from 6 sol for a regular member to 7 sol and 15 sol. Oh, and your detective badge also needs to be replaced with a brand new 1-star official detective badge. As for other things, I'll have Mrs. Oriana prepare them for you. Okay, Captain. Klein was overjoyed. Another raise, what a good thing. At noon, everyone was seated in the Nicholson family restaurant's only private room. Because the confidential matter of the acting method was involved today, all non-combat personnel were not present, but the captain had prepared an additional lunch of the same standard for them. After everyone was seated, various delicious dishes were arranged in layers on the dining table. The waiter opened 3 bottles of red wine for the meal and filled everyone's glasses, then exited the room at Captain Dunn's request. Hey, I really don't know how your brain figured out the acting method, Luo Yao said, patting Klein's shoulder. Ever since I found out, I feel like the Beander characteristics in my body, which hadn't moved for several months, have shown slight signs of activity. I was just lucky, Klein said modestly, forking a portion of the heavily spiced baked lasagna onto his plate. Remember not to reveal this matter to anyone else, Captain Dunn said in a muffled voice, moving his portion of steak in front of him. Understood, Captain. Fry looked at the sky with despair in his eyes. What am I going to do? Am I supposed to be a forensic assistant for a few months? This child is so pitiful. Kornli looked at the lamb chops with the scent of rosemary in front of him, reached out, and forked a piece onto his plate. Captain, among the rest of us, who do you think can digest the Beander characteristics in their body the fastest? Ziga asked, taking a sip of the red wine in her glass. I guess it should be Leonard, old Neil said, attacking his favorite mushroom-stewed beef with a muffled voice. No, I can't be counted, Leonard said. After all, I've been a midnight poet for 2 years, and 60% of the Beander characteristics in my body have already been digested during the case-solving process. But according to the acting method, Klein mentioned, I should not have fully digested the Beander characteristics in my body yet. I think it should be Ziga. Unfortunately, I probably can't be counted. Ziga shook her head. After all, I spend too much time guarding the Chinese gate, and I haven't participated in many cases. How about we make a bet? Luo Yao said excitedly. I bet the next person to be promoted is Fry, 10 Sol. I accept your bet. I bet on Leonard, also 10 Sol. Alright, I'll take that bet. My money is on Fry, old Neil chuckled. I feel like he should be the fastest. Immediately, everyone who placed a bet took out their loose change from their money bags, placing it on either Leonard or Fry, leaving only Kornli motionless. Hey, Kornli, who do you choose? Luo Yao asked. Are those the only two options? Can there be someone else? Kornli laughed. Like me. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. And please support the author by link in description. The private room fell silent for a moment. Aha. Leonard incredulously dug at his ear. My dear Kornli, what did you say? Haha, how ridiculous. You even boasted yourself as a senior member of the team, but you never expected that a newcomer who just joined the team would already be close to becoming a Sequence 8. How ridiculous. The old man mercilessly mocked him in his mind. Shut up, old man, Leonard angrily retorted in his mind. Young people nowadays, they don't have an ounce of respect for their elders. Tisk tisk tisk, the old man mercilessly mocked him in his mind again before falling silent once more. Kornli, this isn't something to joke about. Old Neil's expression was tense as he pulled a handkerchief from his robe to wipe his hands. I feel like the potion in my body has been completely digested, Kornli said, spreading his hands. It was perfectly digested, you know, that feeling of being completely clear and transparent throughout your entire body. All the midnight poets, clowns, and nightmares in the room nodded in unison. They were all too familiar with that feeling. Old Neil looked at Captain Dunn, who nodded. His right hand grasped Kornli's left hand, and a mysterious power enveloped Kornli's entire body. Aha! Old Neil smiled, releasing Kornli's left hand. Indeed, your Marauder potion has been completely absorbed. What an incredible result. Captain Dunn raised his cup. Let's toast to having two excellent team members. Everyone raised their cups to celebrate. Kornli looked into their eyes, and the happiness on each person's face was genuine, without a hint of jealousy or envy. Sorry, I stole your thunder. Kornli lightly clinked his glass with Klein's beside him. Today should have been a celebratory banquet for you revealing a huge secret of the church. I don't mind, Klein said with a smile, a hint of doubt appearing in his heart. He must have known the essence of the acting method in advance to be able to digest the Marauder potion so quickly. He himself understood the acting method through multiple Beander gatherings with Audrey and Alger, learning about it from Alger's descriptions, but how did Kornli know? All right, I have a question. Fry raised his right hand. My dear Kornli, how did you know about the acting method? I don't know. Kornli honestly spread his hands. He knew this action of his would definitely be questioned by his teammates, so he had already prepared an answer in advance. You know, as a Marauder, I definitely have to practice my abilities. Captain Dunn nodded. But I can't go after your money pouches every day, Kornli said, spreading his hands. Everyone at the dining table instinctively looked towards their money pouches at the same time. Moreover, we are also law enforcement officers, which means I can't lay hands on ordinary people, so, Kornli made a helpless gesture. So, I found a compromise. A compromise. Every night, I would go and steal something relatively easy to take, hold onto it for a few hours, and then put it back before they noticed, Kornli said. That works too. Klein looked at Kornli, who helplessly spread his hands. As long as it's returned before they discover it, it doesn't count as stealing, right? How does Kornli's brain work? This guy found a bug. Klein nodded in admiration. He was right. If I haven't even noticed something is gone, how can it be considered stealing? Every time I finished stealing, my marauder potion would digest a little, and when I finished my last theft, that feeling of clarity and transparency throughout my body came. Kornli leaned back. That's how it was. A burst of laughter erupted at the dining table. Leonard looked at Kornli, his face showing a shocked yet helpless expression. This kind of thing is possible too. All right. Luo Yao looked at Kornli and Klein. You two digested your potions one after the other, truly fast. You win. Fry pushed all the money on the table to Kornli. Incredible, simply incredible. Let this money be for today's meal, Captain, Kornli said with a smile. It should still be a little short. I'll make up the rest of the money, Captain Dunn said. This news truly surprises me. It's a pity that the cathedral doesn't have the subsequent potion formula for Marauder, otherwise I would have asked Cresta to bring it today. I will help you search for a suitable formula. If you find one, remember to judge the authenticity of the formula before using it, Captain Dunn said regretfully. I know, Captain, Kornli nodded. After getting off work tonight, he could go to the Evil Dragon Bar to see if there were any suitable Beander items. He hadn't even heard of the two main ingredients, man-faced cage herb and bewitching worm swarm larva. In contrast, how big should a lapis lazuli be? The size of a baby's fist, or a baboon's fist. This was simply infuriating. If you choose to concoct the potion yourself, the team will reimburse the cost, Captain Dunn said. I look forward to your reimbursement form. Thank you for the news, Captain, Kornli was overjoyed. This is truly great news. Old Neil and Klein exchanged a meaningful glance. Let's continue to enjoy these delicious foods. Captain Dunn tapped the wall behind him, and a waiter walked in. Please help us reheat these delicious foods, and then bring in 3 more bottles of wine to go with the meal. It was truly a delightful lunch. You know, if you choose to tell the formula to the captain, that means the cathedral will know it too. Old Neil pulled Kornli and Klein into his office before returning to his own office. I know, but a sequence 8 formula shouldn't be that important, right? Klein and Kornli skillfully took a cup, and the other took coffee powder and hot water, instantly preparing 3 steaming cups of coffee. I understand. Rather than letting this formula rot in your hands, or letting the cathedral obtain the formula from someone else, it's better to sell the formula to the church and get some money in return. Old Neil sat on his sofa. I heard you've been getting close to Svein recently. Not really, it's just that we had a battle together last time, and we developed some manly understanding, Kornli nodded. Have you seen him recently? No, but I had 2 beers with him, Kornli said. He told me there's a market he organized over there. I'm thinking of going to see if there are any suitable formulas for sale later. Formulas are often the most sought-after items, Old Neil nodded. Good luck to you. Then you won't be going to the divination club tonight. I'll have to go alone. Klein looked at Kornli. You're already a clown, why go to the club? Kornli asked. To earn money. Helping others is also a good thing, and at the same time, you can obtain some clues that people usually don't pay attention to, Klein said, feigning a warm heart. That's a good idea, Kornli patted Klein's shoulder. I wish you a lot of income today. Thank you. Klein knew that his little scheme couldn't be hidden from Kornli at all, and he smiled and replied. Kornli stayed in the office for 2 hours, and seeing that there was nothing to do, he left work early and arrived at the Evil Dragon Bar. Svein was sitting at the bar drinking. Seeing Kornli walk in, he nodded to him. This old fellow's mood wasn't high today. What happened? Kornli sat next to him and asked in a low voice. Recently, an old acquaintance of mine lost control, Svein whispered. Old Neil is here, and a friend of his. Klein Moretti, I think that's the name, Svein nodded. A few of us, him. He mumbled a sentence and didn't continue, but Kornli knew that there was only one way for a Beander to lose control. What are you here for today? Svein drained the beer in his glass, seeing Kornli hadn't moved. I want to buy something. Svein nodded, gently tapped the table with his right hand, and the bodyguard next to him nodded and pushed open the nearby door, letting Kornli walk in. Is this the man-faced cage herb? Kornli watched as the merchant opposite him walked in, carrying a pot of dancing flowers, with a translucent cover over the flower pot. Take off the cover and you'll know. The merchant placed the flower pot on the table and let out a breath. How do I tell if it's real? Kornli took off the cover, and the man-faced cage herb extended its leaves, using the sharp thorns on them to harshly prick Kornli. This thing is a carnivorous plant. I suggest you put it in another room before going to bed and lock the door, the merchant said calmly. All right, it should be real. What else do you want? Lapis lazuli. The merchant took out a pear-shaped stone from his pocket and placed it on the table, far away from the man-faced cage herb. Lapis lazuli is a stone with a yellowish green and golden mixed color, very beautiful under the light. Incomplete lapis lazuli is not too expensive, but a complete lapis lazuli of this structure costs at least 3 gold pounds per piece. The two items cost Kornli 69 gold pounds in total. He then bought 10 grams of white millet balm from another merchant for 5 gold pounds. There was no shortage of pure water in the alchemy room, and tears were something he could get if he just thought of a way, without spending money. Now, the most needed item was bewitching worm swarm larvae. Kornli asked all the merchants who frequented the place, but no one knew where to get this item. No choice, Kornli walked out of the black market, carrying a bag half a person tall. Svein looked at Kornli. Did you find what you needed? Have you heard of bewitching worm swarm larvae? Kornli asked without much hope. Of course, you need this. A miracle, you've actually heard of the unfamiliar name bewitching worm swarm larvae. Svein asked the bartender for paper and a pen, wrote down an address, and handed it to Kornli. Belter Parkson, a well-known zoologist in Tingen City. His collection contains many items belonging to the Beyonder world. I once visited his home, Svein said. If you go, mention my name. Are you very familiar with him? The fellow who lost control was Belter's younger brother, Svein said. Although he's not in a good mood now, for my sake, he should let you in. At least he'll let you finish what you have to say. I understand, thank you. Kornli walked out of the Evil Dragon bar, first putting all his belongings back home, covering the man-faced cage herb with his black trash can. According to the merchant, as long as the environment around this thing was dark, it would enter a state similar to hibernation. To 20 Wells Street, thank you, Kornli boarded a private carriage. It was getting late, and according to the local custom, if there were no urgent matters, the appropriate visiting time was before 8 p.m. The carriage stopped in front of a 3-story apartment building in the center of Tingen City. Kornli got out of the carriage, looking curiously at this apartment, which would be considered expensive even in later generations. The outer door of the apartment was a thick cast iron gate with spikes. Although there were no security guards or attendants outside the gate, there seemed to be figures inside the door looking out through the glass. The feeling of being watched was exceptionally real, as if his body was being swept by searchlights. Thump, thump, thump. Kornli knocked on the large door. A butler-like person quickly poked his head out from inside. He glanced at Kornli's formal attire, then came out and met Kornli's gaze from inside the door. How may I help you? I am Svein's friend and would like to meet Mr. Belter Parkson. Upon hearing that he was Svein's friend, the butler scrutinized Kornli up and down again. Please wait a moment, sir. A few minutes later, the iron gate clicked, opened from the inside. The butler stood at the entrance. Mr. Belter is very busy and can only give you 10 minutes. The esteemed Mr. Belter is waiting for you in the study on the 3rd floor. Kornli walked into this apartment. Upon entering, there was a huge staircase. Both sides of the staircase were separated by small grids less than 1 meter square, with layers of glass enclosing different animal specimens inside. Besides these, there were also specimens suspended in glass jars, swaying up and down in formalin solution. Kornli walked up the stairs, and he even saw a complete set of infant specimens, from the size of a fist to the moment just before birth. Fascinating, but extremely terrifying. Belter, don't you have nightmares living in a room like this? Please hurry, sir, time is running out, the butler urged from behind Kornli. Kornli then snapped back to reality and quickly walked towards the 3rd floor. Welcome, my dear sir." In the study, a white-haired man in a white shirt stood up and extended his left hand to Kornli. "This fellow is a left-hander." A white mist appeared in Belter's eyes, and he pulled out an exquisite pistol from behind him, firing a shot at Kornli's chest. Bang! "What are you doing?" Kornli pushed Belter's wrist to the right bookshelf with his left hand, while his right hand reached for his waist, producing a light dagger. He slid his feet lightly across the floor twice, twisting Belter's hands behind his back and placing the dagger against his neck. This matter was very strange. If Belter had intended to assassinate him, he had many opportunities on the way up the stairs but didn't seize any of them. Moreover, the layer of white mist that had risen in his eyes just now was highly suspicious. Belter's arms were completely limp. He looked like a scholar who had studied for many years, his right arm only capable of holding a quill, completely unlike someone who had been an assassin. Even more suspicious was the pistol now at Kornli's waist. Although Kornli only took a quick glance, the exquisite patterns on the grip and barrel made Kornli feel that the weapon's decorative purpose far outweighed its practical effectiveness, not to mention it could only fire one bullet at a time, and reloading took at least 30 seconds. Conclusion: the guy opposite was being controlled. What happened? Belter was still in shock, a sharp dagger pressed against his throat. He looked at Kornli in a panic. "If you want money, I can give you 300 gold pounds in cash. Let go of our Mr. Belter." The butler pulled out a revolver from behind him and aimed it at Kornli. "Whatever you want, Mr. Belter can satisfy you." Kornli's right hand tightened slightly. Belter felt a slight pain in his throat, and a drop of blood trickled down. "I have a few questions," Kornli said. "Have we met before?" "No, never. If it weren't for Svine's name, you wouldn't even have come in." "Then why did you attack me with a pistol just now?" "Sir, what are you saying?" Belter's eyes showed a flicker of panic. He looked at the butler opposite. "Did I attack this gentleman?" The butler nodded without hesitation, confirming it. Kornli placed his pistol in front of Belter. Belter smelled the gunpowder from the barrel, which was still pungent from having fired a bullet, and took a deep breath. "This is a misunderstanding, my dear sir," Belter said with a calm expression. "I believe this is absolutely a huge misunderstanding." Kornli pulled out his detective badge from his pocket, flashed it in front of both of them, then returned the dagger in his right hand to his waist. The butler exhaled when he saw Kornli's badge, and at the same time, lowered his revolver. From Mr. Kornli's actions just now, his detective badge with the police mark, his lack of threatening gestures towards his master, and his steady movements, this was a legitimate detective who could be trusted. "I believe your actions just now were controlled, which is why you acted that way." Kornli spread his hands. "Shall we sit down and talk?" "All right, my dear sir." Belter Parkson breathed a sigh of relief, covering his neck with a handkerchief. He believed Kornli's actions were not intended to actively harm him, otherwise, he would have become a wraith just now. "I confirm again, this is our first meeting, my dear Mr. Belter Parkson, and you have never seen me before." Kornli exhaled. "Then, a few minutes before I just entered, was there anyone else in this room besides me, your butler, and yourself?" "No," Belter Parkson said instinctively, his eyes widening. He quickly stood up and looked out through the large window in the room. Kornli watched his actions with a little curiosity. "No, this isn't possible," Belter muttered to himself, turning to Kornli. "Before you came in, I was chatting with Miss Bella opposite. She is also an animal lover, and we often chat across the window to pass the time." Kornli walked to the window. From the third floor, he could clearly see another red building 30 meters away. A long, thin string connected the two buildings, and on the string hung a glass jar with a slightly faded note inside. The room was empty at the moment. "Did Miss Bella go out?" Kornli raised an eyebrow. "No, she wouldn't. She should be painting in her room at this time." Belter opened the window and called out to the opposite side twice, "Bella, Miss Bella Slack, are you there?" Of course, neither Kornli nor Belter heard any response. "Which deity do you believe in?" Kornli sighed. "This matter is of great importance and concerns your safety," I need to report it. The Night Goddess Church is my lifelong unwavering faith, Mr. Belter said devoutly, making the shape of a crimson moon on his chest. He walked right into it. Praise the goddess. Kornli also drew the shape of the crimson moon on his chest, took out his notebook, scribbled a few lines, folded it, and handed it to the butler. Deliver this to 36 Zotland Street, to the front desk, as soon as possible. Yes, I'll go right away. The butler took the note and quickly ran down the stairs. Soon, the sound of a two-person carriage rushing out of the stable and onto the street was heard. The police and our people will be here shortly. In the meantime, please don't move. As a detective, I need to ensure your safety. Kornli stood up. Are there any other people in the house? 2 maids. They are usually downstairs and never go up to the study on the 3rd floor, Mr. Belter said. What exactly happened? I'm not sure, but in 10 minutes, when my colleagues arrive, we will work together to figure everything out. Kornli closed the window and the door, sat opposite Mr. Belter, took out, despair, with his right hand, and gently spun the revolver. 15 minutes later, a rapid series of footsteps came from the stairs outside. Judging by the sound of the footsteps, it should be Klein and Leonard. Kornli, how are you? Leonard's voice came from outside the door. It's just me and Mr. Belter in the room, everything is safe, Kornli replied calmly. The room door opened, and Leonard and Klein walked in. Leonard looked at the pistol on the table and Mr. Belter, then helplessly pursed his lips. I don't understand why a stranger would want to kill you. You'd better be able to solve this problem. Kornli smiled and bumped fists with Leonard. The interrogation of them is up to you. I'll stand guard here, Leonard said to Klein, then turned to Kornli. Luo Yao is in the room opposite, waiting for the results. I wrote on the note that 2 people would be enough. Kornli asked curiously, why did Luo Yao also? Leonard smiled and gestured towards Klein, who spread his hands helplessly. Luo Yao wants to quickly digest the potion through the acting method. Well, staying up all night is indeed a shortcut for a sleepless to try and digest the potion. I'll go to the opposite side. Kornli left the scene to Leonard and Klein, went downstairs into the building opposite, then went upstairs to meet Luo Yao. 2 nearby police officers ran up and down, and a few minutes later, they pulled the building manager, who was about to fall asleep, out of his covers. He was wearing a floral nightcap and looked at Kornli and Luo Yao with sleepy eyes. Miss Bella Slack, yes, she moved in less than 4 weeks ago. She's said to be a playwright and painter, rarely goes out, and has never been late with rent. I can hear her chatting across the air with the gentleman opposite, but that's normal, isn't it? They're both single. Why single? Good heavens, officer, do I even need to say? The building manager looked at Kornli in exasperation. I haven't seen any men enter her room, only one beautiful lady has visited her. The 2 even enjoyed an afternoon tea together. Miss Bella even took enough black tea for 2 from my room's tea caddy because her own black tea wasn't good enough. All women. Kornli and Luo Yao exchanged a sharp glance, both simultaneously thinking of the demoness sect. Can I go to sleep now, detective, madam? The manager yawned twice. I must be in bed before 10 every day. If it's past 10:30, I can't fall asleep. One last question, besides borrowing black tea from you, does Miss Bella have any other interactions with other residents in the building? Not that I know of, the manager shook his head. Kornli, I'll check his room, Luo Yao said. I just looked at this room, I didn't find anything suspicious. She tilted her head, indicating for Kornli to use his power to survey it again. All right. Kornli entered the room. Miss Bella's rented room was one of the better ones in this building. Upon entering, there was a living room cum kitchen of nearly 15 square meters. There was no fireplace in the room, so it would obviously be colder in winter. There were 2 doors in the living room, leading to the washroom and a small bedroom respectively. Kornli gently clicked his back teeth, opened his spirit vision and treasure-finding abilities. Under his surveying gaze, he only found a few pence in loose change in the bedside drawer, nothing else was found. He pulled open the wardrobe in the bedroom. Several long dresses of various colors were neatly arranged in the wardrobe, along with 3 petticoats, but no other clothes. Wait, no other clothes. A thought suddenly struck Kornli. He went to the kitchen, opened several cabinets, which were empty, with no signs of ever having been used for cooking. Indeed, this was not where Miss Bella truly lived. What she really wanted was to monitor Mr. Belter Parkson and obtain certain things she desired from their conversations. He walked to the window. From here, he could clearly see the main door of Belter's 3-story apartment. This was an excellent location. Found any clues? Luo Yao walked over. I haven't found any suspicious traces. I did find some clues, Kornli said. There's nothing valuable here. Let's go to the other side. The two returned to Belter Parkson's 3-story apartment. Luo Yao walked up the stairs, marveling at the specimens on both sides. She even paused to admire the 9 infant specimens for a long while before being urged by Kornli to Belter's study. What clues have you found? Belter's expression seemed to relax slightly when he saw Kornli enter the room. Kornli sat opposite him and exchanged a glance with Klein, who shook his head slightly, meaning the routine questioning yielded no results. I questioned his butler and the 2 maids downstairs. Their behavior was very normal and consistent with Mr. Belter's testimony, Leonard said casually, sitting on the nearby sofa and drinking the coffee brought by the butler. Unconsciously, everyone's gaze turned to Kornli, as if he were the protagonist of the day. Leonard, as the most senior member of the team after the captain, shouldn't you be leading the questioning at this time? You do it. I can just be lazy. Leonard seemed to see through Kornli's inquiring gaze and nonchalantly propped his legs on the sofa. Hey, you're openly slacking off. Mr. Belter, I just checked Miss Bella Slack's room. I regret to inform you that her target was you. As for me, I merely appeared outside your door at an inopportune time. Me? Strange, what's so special about me? Belter spread his hands. As you can see, I'm just an eccentric old man who puts all his energy into animals and specimens, and I'm still single. Excuse me, I'd like to speak with your master privately for a moment. Kornli turned to the butler, who nodded quickly, placed 4 cups of coffee on the table, and then quietly closed the door from outside. There's a private question I need to discuss with you alone, Kornli said in a low voice. When I held you hostage earlier, your butler mentioned that you could readily produce hundreds of pounds here. Plus these specimens you collect, although I don't have much research into zoology, their price should be considerable. You must be a wealthy man. I inherited my father's capital when I was 15, and over the years, I've invested in some stocks, 2 or 3 of which brought me significant returns. Mr. Belter nodded. What does this have to do with Miss Bella? Single, rich. Luo Yao covered her head with one hand on the side. These 2 points are quite fatal for women, aren't they? This guy, with absolutely no luck with the opposite sex, deserves to be single until now. You mean Miss Bella wanted to get my money? Mr. Belter finally reacted. Exactly, until she saw me, Kornli said. I don't understand. This involves another case of ours, and you are not a part of it, so please forgive us for not being able to disclose it for now, Kornli said. Your brother passed away a few days ago, and Miss Bella moved in across from your house a month ago. I believe there might be some connection between these 2 events. The other party is an organization, and Miss Bella is a member sent by the organization. Her purpose is likely your money, or something noteworthy among your collections. Leonard's eyes widened, and he glanced at Luo Yao next to him, who nodded heavily, confirming Kornli's conclusion. Do you have any impression? Mr. Belter pondered for a few minutes, then shook his head regretfully. Sorry, I don't recall. As you said, Miss Bella did visit my study and specimen room, but I don't think she would have any constructive opinions on my specimens. Your brother is a Beander, I believe you already know that, Kornli said. We have some methods that can show you the scene when Miss Bella arrived in a very intuitive way, and it will not harm you. Please try it, Mr. Belter nodded. I don't want my life to be disturbed by anything. As you said, the other party is also an organization with more than 1 member, so I will cooperate with anything that can catch the murderer. Kornli looked at Klein, giving him an encouraging look. The more people, the more spirituality is needed. The two of us will wait for you outside. Leonard pulled Luo Yao, who, understanding the hint, picked up his coffee and walked out of the study with Leonard, taking 2 chairs and sitting face to face. Please don't worry, I need you to carefully recall the first time you met Miss Bella. Klein carried a chair and sat on the other side of Belter, taking out a baby palm-sized dream talismans from his pocket and playing with it for 2 seconds. Night. Kornli only felt a dizzy spell, his vision turned pitch black, and a white light appeared between his eyebrows, guiding him forward. Sorry, I can only use this kind of entrance effect to bring your consciousness over, otherwise you would fall asleep. Klein reached out and pulled Kornli. Next to him, Mr. Belter looked at his hands in surprise. In front of the 3 of them, there was another Mr. Belter who was engrossed in writing at his desk, and in front of him was a human hand specimen placed in a formalin bottle. In the center of the hand, a huge human eye was embedded, scanning the surroundings with a cold and inhuman gaze, making Kornli feel a chill all over his body. This was still Belter's study. At the edge of the study, ripples that only Kornli could see slowly vibrated. Kornli then realized that the space they could move in was only half of the room, and the other half was still in an unstable state. Don't go over there, I don't have the captain's ability to forcibly stabilize broken structures, Klein's voice sounded in Kornli's ear. Even so, being able to invent the ability to chat privately in dreams was quite good. Kornli forced himself to calm down, watching Belter next to him look at himself, pointing his right hand at the other him in front, and gesturing back and forth between the 2 of them, looking at a loss. You can think of it as watching a play performed by yourself, and we are the spectators of the play. If you feel uncomfortable, you can leave at any time, Klein comforted Belter next to him. Belter's emotions gradually stabilized, and Kornli noticed that the surrounding ripples gradually receded, and the movable space gradually expanded to the entire study. The study door was gently knocked. The butler pushed the door open and stood respectfully at the entrance. Mr. Belter, Miss Bella from across the street has come to visit. Please let her in. Mr. Belter put down the fountain pen in his hand, placed the bottle containing the eye-embedded hand under the desk, and took the handkerchief next to him to wipe his hands. Hello, dear Mr. Belter. Miss Bella walked into the room. She was wearing a pink dress, her hands adorned with a pair of matching silk gloves. A few curly strands of her dark brown hair fell loosely on either side, playfully dangling by her ears, and combined with her expressive, large eyes, she appeared very charming. Very good, Klein nodded. He saw from the corner of his eye that Kornli was also silently nodding. I never expected my neighbor to be an animal lover. As someone who also enjoys animal specimens, please forgive my sudden visit today. Miss Bella curtsied, her large eyes fluttering as she looked at Belter in front of her. An inexplicable emotion filled the space between the 2. It seems she really was interested in me. Belter took a deep breath. What a pity. There's nothing to pity, Kornli suddenly said. You should be glad you didn't fall for it. What did you say? I didn't understand. Belter looked confused. Klein, can we pause here and zoom in on Miss Bella's throat? Kornli asked. Yes, just a moment. A few seconds later, all 3 simultaneously saw Miss Bella's not fully atrophied, still wriggling male Adam's apple. Mr. Belter pointed at the Adam's apple, then gaped and pointed at Miss Bella, his hands flailing uncontrollably in the air, a look of disbelief on his face. Congratulations, you almost. Kornli patted Mr. Belter's shoulder. I suggest that after this is over, you can go to Bradley Street in the West District to calm your nerves. Bradley Street in the West District is Tingen City's famous red light district, where many working girls can be found late into the night. Klein looked at Kornli with a strange expression. Is that how you comfort someone? The surrounding scene fluctuated. Mr. Belter took 2 deep breaths. Your suggestion is very good, I will consider it. The 3 watched as Mr. Belter took Miss Bella on a tour of the study. Mr. Belter was indeed a simple man. He didn't catch any of the flirtatious glances Miss Bella threw his way, which made Miss Bella sigh secretly. This thing is very interesting, where did you get it? As the two walked past a shelf, Miss Bella's eyes lit up. She saw a huge fish tank on the shelf. There was no water in the fish tank, but there were many mosses and insects inside. A huge spider web was fixed inside the fish tank, and a huge black and red spider seemed to be lazily sleeping on the spider web. Are you referring to this adult widow spider? This is my exclusive collection, Mr. Belter said with a smile. I had to mobilize quite a few people to catch it. So that's how it was. Where did you get this adult widow spider from? Kornli asked. If I remember correctly, it should be from the jungle on Zemian Island, near the Rhosid archipelago, Mr. Belter mused. Yes, that's right. The two people in the scene continued to chat for nearly an hour, making both Kornli and Klein yawn a little. The woman was eagerly showing affection, but the man was unmoved. All her gentleness hit a wall, which was truly regrettable. Have you met Miss Bella a second time? Klein covered his mouth with his hand, hiding his yawn. No, Belter shook his head. She occasionally sends me a bottle through a string between the windows, and it contains her message. Oh, right, just before Mr. Kornli came in, I was talking to her through the window, but I've already forgotten what we said, Belter said regretfully. Kornli nodded to Klein. I generally understand. Klein supported Kornli and Mr. Belter with both hands, and the surrounding scene receded like a tide. Belter blinked, finding himself still sitting behind his desk, with the other two also in their seats. The other party deliberately approached you for your collection and wealth. Kornli nodded. What happened in the dream has confirmed my guess. What should I do now? Belter looked at Kornli with pleading eyes. First, I need a complete list of all your collections, and then you need to hire 2 security personnel. This is what I can think of, Kornli said. I suggest you send some valuable collections elsewhere for safekeeping, such as that giant adult widow spider. I understand, Mr. Belter nodded. In 2 days, I will move to Backlund. Moving. Giving up such a large house just like that. Truly a rich person. Butler. Mr. Belter clapped his hands, and the butler, dressed in a formal suit, pushed the door open. Sir, please give your command. Find 4 qualified bodyguards to be responsible for my safety for the next 2 days. 5 gold pounds per person per day, 10 gold pounds, Mr. Belter waved his hand. Then prepare a list of all the animal specimens here for these 2 gentlemen. Yes, sir. 10 gold pounds a day. Kornli saw a green glow in Klein's eyes and couldn't help but raise his hand. Wait, do you have any instructions? Mr. Belter stopped the butler. Anything, I can do it. If you need people, I think the 2 of us can have time tomorrow to serve as guards for 1 day, Kornli smiled. 10 gold pounds per person per day. Both of you are respected first-class detectives. To guard my life, I believe your skills and strength far exceed 10 gold pounds, Mr. Belter was overjoyed. 20 gold pounds per person per day, no less. All right, in that case, I think we can start protecting your safety from tonight. Kornli and Klein exchanged glances. You don't have any objections, Detective Klein? No, not at all. You've arranged it so well, my dear Detective Kornli. None, Klein swallowed with difficulty. Since that's the case, we need to coordinate with our colleagues outside. Kornli walked to the door and greeted Leonard. Aha, a team mission. Leonard looked at Kornli. Are you serious? This case belongs to the Night Goddess Church, it's ours by right, and it's our responsibility to protect the victim. Kornli spread his hands. 4 people, 2 per shift, 1 day, 80 gold pounds. After deducting 40 gold pounds for the team, each person still gets 10 gold pounds. Isn't that good? Luo Yao nodded vigorously beside him. She almost worshipped Kornli's ability to earn money and work simultaneously. All right, the 2 of us will go back today. According to the rules, I still need to fill out a report. Leonard was also moved by the sum of 10 gold pounds. What did you and Klein see in his dream just now? That Miss Bella is a man. Luo Yao could hardly believe Kornli's words. She bent her fingers on her left hand, putting them back one by one, as if trying to sort out the chaotic thoughts in her mind with this action. We clearly saw long dresses in her wardrobe. But you didn't see any underwear, did you? Kornli said. You're also a woman, you should know that a woman's wardrobe can't just have long dresses, but for a man. Leonard bumped his head against the nearby wall, making thudding sounds. Unbelievable, truly unbelievable. This poor child's worldview is about to explode. I can almost confirm now that the other party is from the demonist sect, and should be a Sequence 8 instigator, Kornli whispered. Klein will give you the portrait. This is her, no, his portrait. Klein walked over and handed over a clear portrait. I can try divination later, but if it's as Kornli thinks, and the other party is from the demonist sect, divination might not have a good effect. Bella's reason for approaching Mr. Belter was for Beander materials and money, but why did she attack you? Leonard looked up, his eyes fixed on Kornli. Was it her? The one who wasn't caught at Triss's scene? Possibly, but don't forget, we still have a portrait that hasn't been dealt with, the one that was slipped out of the Chinese gate, which also depicts a woman, Klein said. Damn it, I hate the demonist sect, Leonard nodded. I'll go back and report clearly to the captain. Tomorrow night at 8, Luo Yao and I will pick you up. Preferably no later than 9, Klein nodded. I can't go 2 consecutive days without going home. Leonard and Luo Yao took turns patting Klein's shoulder. As they turned and went downstairs, Luo Yao's incredulous voice still reached Kornli and Klein's ears. A man, it was actually a man. The team's worldview shattered into pieces. Kornli and Klein returned to the study. At Klein's strong insistence, Kornli first checked Mr. Belter's comfortable large bed, then patted Klein's shoulder. You sleep here tonight. Although I don't know what will happen, the other party has already alarmed the police in S, so the possibility of them attacking tonight is very low. So even if they do attack, they'll be surprised to find that it's not Belter in the bed. You can draw all the curtains. Mr. Belter and I will sleep in the study next door. I'll set up some simple traps outside the window so you can hear if there's any movement, Kornli said. After stepping on the traps, they won't be able to see what's inside the room, and they'll be at a loss. This will give us a precious minute or two to prepare. This, Klein looked at the large bed made from a single log, and the thick wool blanket on it. This bed. Please, you must rest on this bed tonight, Belter said, pressing his hands together. At least this is something I can do. 2 maids walked in from outside, bowing slightly to the people in the room. About 10 minutes later, a brand new sheet and a brand new duvet were laid on Belter's large bed. On either side of the study, 2 mattresses made of bearskin and equally thick blankets were arranged to the left and right of a bookshelf. The butler arranged his bed by the study door, with a double-barreled shotgun beside him. Please rest assured, if anyone comes in, they will have to step over my corpse first, he solemnly promised Belter. Kornli and Klein sat opposite each other at another table in the study. In front of them were 2 tender grilled steaks, a bowl of mashed potatoes with black pepper sauce, and an unknown fish stewed with lemongrass leaves and farsac paste. Kornli scooped a spoonful of fish soup into his mouth, feeling that the taste was similar to the harbin stewed live fish he was familiar with. You have a very good chef, Kornli said to Belter beside him, holding his fork. Thank you, please enjoy yourselves. Belter was organizing one thick specimen catalog after another on the desk. Each time he finished one, the butler would bring it to Kornli and Klein. 2 hours later, Kornli and Klein, who were already full, looked at the 8 thick catalogs. According to the records in Kornli's mind, at least 40-odd materials among them could be used as primary or auxiliary ingredients for Beander potions. This was a treasure for any organization. Kornli instantly felt like a mouse that had fallen into a rice cooker. In the 7th catalog, Kornli found the bewitching worm swarm larvae he needed, as promised, and they were live specimens. Where did you obtain this item? Kornli quietly asked Belter while Klein was in the restroom. Inside a cave, it seems it should be in, Belter frowned, a cave in the Minsk Mountains. I've forgotten the exact location. Bewitching worm swarm larva, do you need this? Belter noticed Kornli's need. If you don't mind, I can buy it with pounds. I can concoct a potion with this, Kornli lied. No, no, I can give you a portion, Belter shook his head. It didn't cost me much when I obtained it. In fact, it was an accessory product from a hunting team under me that captured an ice rock python. He walked outside and soon returned with a bottle the size of a test tube. Inside the bottle, clinging to the wall, was a small worm about 10 centimeters long, with a body of black, white, and green colors. Here you go, Belter unhesitatingly handed the test tube to Kornli. Store it carefully. This thing runs very fast. His Beander potion materials were complete. Thank you, Kornli carefully tucked the test tube into his embrace. I'm going to sleep, Klein walked in and greeted Kornli. I've already set up over a dozen traps outside, you don't have to worry, Kornli yawned. The carb-induced drowsiness after eating made him feel a bit sleepy. If there's any movement, the bells in both our rooms will ring. He pointed to the 2 rooms above, where 2 bells were tied with thin strings. Any movement outside would cause the bells to ring throughout the bedroom and study. Good night, Klein yawned and walked into the bedroom. To ensure he could hear any sounds in time, he left a small gap in the door between the bedroom and the study, not closing it completely. If anyone wanted to attack here tonight, they would truly be seeking death. Kornli placed despair under his pillow and peacefully fell into a dream. At 12:30 in the evening, a 4-wheeled carriage slowly passed Belter's 3-story mansion apartment. Mrs. Sharon and Evelyn, disguised as Miss Bella, sat opposite each other, scrutinizing the cold building with judgmental expressions. What you're doing is very counterproductive. Mrs. Sharon stared at Miss Evelyn opposite her with a severe tone. The latter kept her head down, her eyes seemingly ready to shed crystal tears at any moment. We still don't know if that guy is dead or alive, but to orchestrate your relationship with Belter, we spent 2 months, even using a Beander item to make his brother die in an accident, all to allow your intervention to fill the void in his emotions. I can go assassinate Belter now, Evelyn raised her head. His house is full of ordinary people, and there are only 4 of them. I saw it from the window. We just need to find a few people to empty out everything in his house. Foolish, Mrs. Sharon looked at Belter's apartment slowly passing outside the window and gently tapped the back panel of the carriage. To the outskirts of the city. Yes, madam. What Belter can provide is not just those pounds and Beander materials, but also his identity. That is a key to the upper echelons, and yet you easily broke this key, all for a fool I once mentioned. After you left, the police station took over the scene. They didn't carry out any corpses from inside, nor did they allow any doctor to enter. You should know that this means everything you did has come to naught. More importantly, the Beander team has already intervened. 4 of them came, but there were only 2 people in the carriage that just left. Do you think with the power of an instigator, you can defeat 2 prepared official Beanders? You are even more foolish than Triss. These words deeply struck Miss Evelyn's heart. Her tears fell in large drops, as if she had suffered an immense grievance. Stop up ahead, Mrs. Sharon tapped the carriage panel. The carriage slowly stopped beside a cluster of buildings. Another carriage stopped behind this one, and the coachman's eyes revealed a hint of blood-red light. You take this carriage to the next stop, and tomorrow morning take the first train to Backlund. Once there, you should know what to do. Yes, Sister Sharon, Evelyn replied softly. This is your last chance. Don't mess it up. Mrs. Sharon shook her head and got out of the carriage. At 9 o'clock the next morning, Kornli opened his eyes. The fur mat beneath him was softer than his own mattress, making him feel exceptionally comfortable. He turned over to see Mr. Belter, separated by a bookshelf, staring at him with red eyes circled in black, a helpless expression on his face. It seems this child didn't sleep all night. We were supposed to be responsible for guarding the victim, but instead, the victim guarded us all night. Ha ha ha, how embarrassing. Good morning, Kornli. Klein poked his head out of the room, a toothbrush still in his mouth. I slept very well. I slept very well too. Mr. Belter, you can go catch a few hours of sleep, Kornli advised Mr. Belter. I'll instruct your butler on how to move. Those criminals won't be active during the day. All right. Belter rubbed his bloodshot eyes, which hadn't slept all night, got up, and stumbled past Klein's shoulder into his bedroom. Less than a minute later, his faint snores could be heard. Poor child. Kornli unceremoniously ordered 2 large breakfasts, then toward the second floor, which he hadn't visited the previous night. This Belter fellow is truly rich. He had the entire second floor opened up and divided by shelves, with animal specimens from floor to ceiling. All right, Kornli called the butler over. For Mr. Belter's collections, please prepare 15 of the largest carriages, then hire 2 pleasure boats from the dock to Pritz Harbor, and also purchase first-class tickets for all train services from Backlund to Tingen City the day after tomorrow. This is. The butler's eyes lit up. You mean to make it unclear to the other party which carriage contains valuable goods? Exactly. These arrangements don't cost much, but for you and your master, safety is paramount. Kornli nodded. Go do it. I'll go at once. The butler nodded admiringly. A brilliant arrangement. Klein poured fresh coffee into Kornli's cup. The coffee tastes very good. Kornli took a small sip of coffee. If the demonist sect wants to know which carriage contains the items they desire, they'll need to send out a team of at least 20 or 30 people to find out the specifics. If they have a force of that size, the 3 major churches in Tingen City would be busy to the point of headaches. Kornli took a slice of white bread and spread a thick layer of jam on it. At 3 in the afternoon, Belter, who had slept all day, finally woke up. Kornli informed him of his arrangements. Belter didn't voice any questions about the arrangements, only profound gratitude. At 8 in the evening, Leonard arrived with Luo Yao and clapped right hands with Kornli in the air, indicating that he would take over the shift tonight. Captain Dunn asked me to tell you that he has already sent the corresponding portraits to the docks, the steam train station, and several carriage rental companies. If they are found, he will notify us immediately. Also, Leonard paused slightly, you did a good job. I know. Kornli smiled. Thank you both for guarding for a day and a night. Belter pulled out an envelope and handed it to Kornli. Inside is my address in Backlund. If you two have time to visit Backlund, please be sure to enjoy a meal at my manor. I will. Kornli took the envelope and put it into his pocket, then shook hands with Belter to bid farewell. I wish you a safe journey. Belter nodded, personally seeing Kornli and Klein to the carriage at the door. Brett, who was driving, nodded and greeted Kornli, watching them enter the carriage. Kornli opened the envelope. Inside were 8 brand new £5 notes, totaling £40. He took out 2 of them and directly handed them to Klein. This is the second easiest £10 I've ever earned. Klein caressed the portrait of Henry XX on the £5 note and contentedly put it into his money pouch. Very good, you've finally learned to enjoy the feeling of putting money in your pocket, my dear fool. Let's go back to the team. I believe Captain Dunn should still be waiting for our report. Kornli said, did you divine that portrait last night before going to bed? Klein was not at all surprised by Kornli's prediction. As you said, there was no effect. No effect at all. Captain Dunn listened to Klein's report, his brows furrowed. Belter's behavior indeed matches that of an instigator, so now we have 2 ladies whose whereabouts are unknown. You 2 can go off duty, especially Klein. Last night, Leonard went to your house pretending to be your colleague, saying there were some documents that needed your translation, and he had to keep you for overtime. Don't arouse your family's suspicion. All right, Captain Dunn. Klein nodded to Kornli and Captain Dunn in farewell and walked out first. Good night, Captain Dunn. Kornli yawned, handed the envelope containing £20 to Captain Dunn, and returned home. Although he slept well at Belter's house, it wasn't his own home after all. He couldn't take a bath and only slept in his clothes, so it was still a bit uncomfortable. He carefully took out the test tube containing the bewitching worm swarm larva from his pocket, placed it in a tin box, and with his right hand, pulled out the note Belter had left him, glancing at the address on it. Backlund South District, Fairy Lake Street No. 1, Parkson Manor. To own a manor in the main district of Backlund, this Belter fellow is truly rich. He tore up the note and peacefully fell into a dream. In the morning, Kornli habitually brought sandwiches and snacks to work. He spent the entire day leisurely, reading the newspaper and eating snacks while at work. Will you still go to the divination club tonight? Klein looked at Kornli. No, I have some private matters tonight, Kornli said. Very private, because he was preparing for the swindler's potion. After work, he bought a brand new iron pot and a clean, graduated beaker at the nearby Horace's family grocery store. With the pure water that old Neil had distilled several times, which he had brought from the alchemy room, he went to Nixo Street, 2 blocks from his home. There was a large bridge here, and under the bridge lived several homeless people, both men and women. They earned a living by selling their labor or washing clothes for others. Since this area was relatively close to Tingen city center, they could earn a decent income every day, or at most every 2 days. What did you say? Mrs. Grella Butler took the beaker, looking at Kornli in disbelief. My tears can make money. Yes, the doctor said this is an ingredient for a medicine. Kornli took out 3 one-penny coins from his pocket. If you're willing. Willing. Grella unhesitatingly took the beaker. Under Kornli's guidance, she thought about the sad things in her life. Tears streamed uncontrollably from her eyes, filling the entire beaker in just a few minutes. Enough. Kornli, unable to bear it, took the beaker into his hand and pulled out 2 more coins from his pocket, pressing them into Mrs. Grella's hand. I'm sorry for making you recall so many sad things. It's all right, woo, you're a good person. Mrs. Grella looked at the 5 one-penny coins in her hand, her heart filled with emotion. Her crying grew louder and louder. Alas, it was all his own doing. Kornli returned home with these items, rinsed the iron pot with clean water, carefully wiped off all the moisture, and first poured in 100 milliliters of pure water. Then, 20 milliliters of other people's tears. Lapis lazuli, and white chestnut balm. Damn it, get in there. Kornli grabbed the man-faced cage herb from the flower pot, pulling it out along with its roots, shaking off the dirt from the roots, and directly throwing it into the iron pot. The potion in the iron pot turned an iron blue color, continuously emitting tiny bubbles. Kornli took the test tube containing the bewitching worm swarm larva from the nearby table, cautiously approached the potion, carefully opened the lid of the test tube, and used the only spoon in his house to push the bewitching worm swarm larva into the potion. The color of the potion changed from iron blue to a colorful mixture of red, yellow, blue, and pink the moment the bewitching worm swarm larva entered it. Within the gently rising bubbles, Kornli could vaguely see human faces appearing, dissipating, and reappearing in the bubbles. A fragrant and sweet scent emanated from the potion, strongly resembling bubble tea made directly with sweetener and no water. This should be real, right? Kornli poured the potion from the iron pot into a beaker containing pure water and picked up the beaker. Good luck to himself. He tilted his head back and swallowed the sweet potion in one gulp. It was first sweet and fragrant, then slightly bitter, and a nauseating taste went directly from his mouth to his esophagus, all the way down, circling directly in his stomach and intestines, as if he had swallowed a long, snake-like noodle. What kind of damned analogy is this? An intense pain came from his stomach. Kornli, unprepared, fell directly onto the bed behind him. Sweat, like a waterfall, poured from his face, limbs, and every joint and muscle throughout his body, as if all parts of his body had received a strike command at the same time. This feeling was no different from having epilepsy. Kornli thought self-mockingly, using the last shred of clarity in his mind to control his neck to straighten, then bit down hard on his pillow. Hold on, Kornli, hold on. Beneath his skin, countless tiny flesh buds slowly wriggled within his perception. His nasal bone suddenly grew several centimeters taller, then collapsed without warning. Between his ears, he could hear faint crackling sounds caused by friction within his bones, and the sound of blood flowing through his vessels was like a waterfall rushing beside his ears. All things in the world can be stolen. For some reason, this sentence echoed in Kornli's ears again and again. Kornli silently recited this sentence, and unknowingly, a rare sense of calm filled his heart. Half an hour later, Kornli struggled to get up from the head of the bed, looking at the human-shaped sweat stain on the bed, and gave a self-deprecating smile. I am already a swindler. He walked into the washroom, looked at the man in front of him who was slightly thinner than before, but whose facial features were more harmonious and more convincing. He smiled slightly, took another cool shower, changed the bedsheet, lay on the bed, and felt the changes within his body. He had gained one more ability, mental interference, which allowed him to create certain illusions for enemies with his own power and nearby objects, and also to mislead enemies through eloquence. His observational ability seemed to be stronger than before, and his whole body's muscles were firmer than before, though this might be due to him eating better recently. Kornli chuckled, smashed all the iron pots and test tubes, put them into several bags, and fell into a deep sleep on the bed. Hey, Kornli, is it because I didn't wash my face today, or do you look a bit thinner today? No, you look more handsome. Fry looked at Kornli walking into the office with a puzzled expression. He turned to look at Zhiga on the side. Dear author, should I use the word, handsome, to describe our lovely Kornli? You can, but it would make me question your preferences. Zhiga smiled. I think he might be exercising recently, or maybe it's because I haven't seen him for 2 days. No, it's because, Leonard walked in, casually tossing his hat onto the hat rack. His eyes scanned Kornli for 2 seconds, then he pretended nothing happened and returned to his seat. Damn it, I forgot to buy breakfast. Leonard looked around at the others. Does anyone need a sandwich? The others shook their heads. Leonard got up, picked up his hat again, and went downstairs. Old man, did you feel it? Leonard whispered. I felt it when you passed by him, Pale Zoroast said in his mind. He has already advanced to Sequence 8 Swindler. That fast. I don't even know where he got the formula, and the potion, so many ingredients. You're not the only one with an extraordinary encounter. According to what you said, this is the law of historical development. Pales chuckled. What was that wheel called again? The wheels of history roll forward. Well, he's still my teammate, but I have some suspicions about his actions and behavior. Leonard turned right forward, bought a thick sandwich, and returned to the office. At this time, Kornli arrived at Captain Dunn's office and handed Captain Dunn a note. This is, the Sequence 8 potion formula. Captain Dunn picked up the note, glanced at what was on it, and his eyes widened. Where did you get the formula? Evil Dragon Bar, a man in a black hood who refused to reveal his name, Kornli said. Kornli White, are you sure you want to dedicate this formula to the Night Goddess Church? Captain Dunn straightened up and leaned back in his chair, speaking with unusual solemnity. I'm sure, Captain, Kornli nodded. Could you please not call me by my full name? It sounds like I've made some error, Kornli said, sitting opposite the captain. Captain Dunn chuckled. All right, I'll try to remember. That meant there was a 90%, no, 99% chance he would forget. I will present this formula to the Sanctuary. Based on past performance, the Sanctuary is likely to give you a portion of money as encouragement. Captain Dunn pulled out a small notebook from his drawer, flipped to a page, and tapped it with his finger. It will probably be around 600 to 700 gold sol. That high? Kornli was startled. He remembered that the price of a Sequence 8 Beander potion formula should be around 400 to 500 gold sol. This price is indeed higher than formulas available on the market. I believe the Sanctuary is giving this price more as a reward for the loyalty of the person who offered the formula. However, this money won't arrive quickly. The Sanctuary needs time to verify the authenticity of the formula, which will take a while. At the same time, for safety's sake, I hope you don't use this formula for now. Your safety is always the top priority. Captain, you're a bit late, Kornli smiled. I just finished consuming this Beander potion last night. The fact that I'm still alive proves that this, swindler, Beander potion is correct and effective. Captain Dunn. I should have thought of that. Captain Dunn exhaled, pulled out his pipe and tobacco from his pocket, lit it with practiced ease, and blew out a smoke ring. I understand. I will inform the Sanctuary that you are still alive after consuming the Beander potion. Captain Dunn took puff after puff from his pipe, his movements suddenly slowing. There's one thing I'm very curious about, Kornli. Could you help me answer it? You bought this formula. How much did it cost? 380 gold sol, Kornli answered without hesitation. In fact, he knew what Captain Dunn was going to ask, and he had already prepared his answer. The lapis lazuli, white millet paste, and man-faced cage herb together cost about 70 gold sol. The purified water and tears of others didn't cost anything. The most expensive item should have been the bewitching worm swarm larva, but I didn't pay for it, I exchanged it with Mr. Belter. That's already over 450 gold sol, but you've only earned less than 50 gold sol so far, including your salary. Captain Dunn had just raised his hand when he saw Kornli glance left and right, then lean in slightly, stopping his words. Captain, what I'm about to say involves a secret of the marauder. Kornli whispered. A marauder can see stolen goods hidden under the floor, and also the actual value of items displayed on shelves, which is very useful for assessing the value of some antiques. You mean, making a profit from the difference? Captain Dunn asked, puzzled. Kornli nodded, at least enough to earn some pocket money. Before this, I had met Mr. Belter once and sold him an insect specimen in a citrine. Although that item only cost me less than 3 gold sol, according to him, this insect specimen originated from the 4th epoch and is now extinct. He unhesitatingly gave me 450 gold sol, plus the 20 gold sol from these 2 team missions, and my weekly salary for these past few weeks. The money I had was just enough to buy all the Beander items. As for the bewitching worm swarm larva, it was an additional gift from Mr. Belter, so I didn't pay for it. Over 400 gold sol, for a marauder, is only pocket money. Captain Dunn's mouth twisted slightly. What Kornli said was sincere enough, and the evidence was conclusive, he really couldn't find any reason to refute it. Moreover, Belter Parkson, the only one who could corroborate Kornli's statement, had already taken the earliest steam locomotive to Backlund. For Dunn, Kornli's reason was completely valid. It seems you're out of money again, Captain Dunn smiled. There are still 3 days until Monday, when the weekly salary is paid. I haven't told Mrs. Oriana about this 40 gold sol team fund yet. You can borrow a portion of it temporarily. I think I can last until Monday. Kornli nodded, a faint red glow slowly dissipating from his eyes. Just now, he had used the swindler's ability, combined with a half-truthful description and a large amount of detailed facts, and Captain Dunn completely believed his statement. Therefore, the foundation of deception needs to be built on certain facts to make it easier for the other party to believe. This should be part of the swindler's acting method. Inside his body, the deceiver, Beander potion he had just consumed made a crack sound, and nearly a third of the Beander potion quietly shattered. He seemed to have summarized a very important point in the deceiver Beander potion's acting method. Unbelievable, a few hundred gold sol is just pocket money to you. Dunn shook his head, took a slip of paper from the table, wrote 2 entries on it, and solemnly stamped it with his own seal from the drawer. Starting next week, your weekly salary will be adjusted to 7 gold sol and 15 sol, the same as Klein's. Old Neil will prepare your official 2-star detective badge and epaulets. Just give this slip to Mrs. Oriana. Understood, Captain, Kornli said. By the way, the name of this Beander potion is Swindler. Can I assume its abilities are all related to interacting with people? Captain Dunn asked this question as Kornli stood up. I believe so, Captain, Kornli nodded. At most, it can mislead enemies, but it depends on the opponent's strength. It might not work against overly powerful enemies. Captain Dunn nodded, propped his feet on the table, and continued to smoke his pipe. Phew, the captain's hurdle is over. In a few weeks, he'll have a few hundred more gold sol in his account, which is great. Kornli returned to his seat and took the Tingen City Weekly that Klein had finished reading from across the table. The first page had prominent text that read, Aldrich Calvin, Minister of the Tingen City Department of Labor, will become the new mayor of Tingen City next Monday. He has promised at the election rally to significantly improve the wages of factory workers and laborers, and will cooperate with the Church of the Lord of Steam and Machinery to introduce 2 shoe manufacturing factories within a month, providing a large number of job opportunities. He seems like a decent fellow. In the evening, Kornli and Klein, who had nothing to do, came to the divination club again. The former just needed a change of scenery to ponder how to roleplay a swindler, while the latter diligently added soul by soul to his wallet for his family's living expenses. Angelica brought over their usual drinks, her body brushing lightly against Klein's as she swayed her charming maidenly figure and walked out. Klein, who hadn't dared to breathe a word just now, let out a sigh of relief, picked up his black tea, and took a big gulp. Kornli found it amusing and said, "You can try it. I won't tell the other members of the team about this." No, I'm a bit." Klein waved his right hand repeatedly but couldn't find a suitable adjective for a long time. Germophobic. Exactly, mentally germophobic. Klein looked at Kornli with surprise. "You know that word too." "That's great." Klein instantly felt a sense of common language with Kornli, just like when he traveled to the Arctic Circle before and went out to eat, only to find the chef and waiter in the only local restaurant discussing in northeastern dialect whether to use tomato sauce or sweet and sour sauce for guo bao ru. It felt just as familiar. No, it must be my illusion. Klein looked at Kornli. He didn't look like someone from his hometown at all. With his brown short hair, there was no familiar feeling. "Mr. Klein, someone is looking for you for a divination, in the red agate room." Angelica walked over and said softly, "Good luck." Kornli put down the magazine in his hand, picked up his coffee, and took a sip. Half an hour later, Klein walked out of the room with slightly hurried steps, holding a 1-sol banknote in his hand, giving Kornli a look that today's leisure time was over. "Klein, how did you convey 11 words with just a look, and I could even understand it?" "A mission." Kornli closed his magazine and followed Klein out of the divination club. "A bit of a small trouble. I believe this should be a team mission." Klein nodded. Compared to divination, going out on missions with you earns more. You're right. Lamud Town, there's a wraith appearance. Captain Dunn looked at Kornli and Klein, who had returned to the team. Was the young lady who just had the divination a believer of the goddess? Yes. Klein nodded to confirm. "I've been to her home before. Her whole family are loyal believers of the goddess." "Then there's no problem." Captain Dunn nodded, then turned to Kornli. "Do you want to come with us?" "My dear swindler." "Ah, what, swindler? Has Kornli successfully advanced?" "You didn't tell me about your advancement." Klein gently nudged his friend with his elbow. "Congratulations." "Thank you, actually, I just wanted to handle it in a low-key manner." Kornli tilted his head and pointed at the team's lounge next door. After all, becoming a Sequence 8 and being a Sequence 8 are 2 completely different things for them. Klein nodded in understanding. "In that case, the 3 of us can go." Captain Dunn pondered for a few seconds, took a piece of paper from the side, scribbled a few lines on it, then stamped it with his seal. "My suggestion is to bring 30782, the mutated Sun Holy Emblem. It has a continuous purification effect on wraiths and ghosts, and bring some purification bullets. That should be enough. However, we can stay within its influence for a maximum of 6 hours. Exceeding that might turn us into idiots who can only praise the sun," Captain Dunn said. "Captain, I suggest Fry go with us this time." Kornli said. "With ghosts, there might be corpses, and with him there, he can examine them on the spot, plus his ability can directly see the existence of ghosts. It takes 2.5 hours to drive from here to Lamud Town." Captain Dunn glanced at Kornli. "You make a good point. Actually, for this operation, only one of us needs to go." "Kornli, you lead the team this time." "Ah, me." Kornli pointed at the tip of his nose. "Lead the team. From all the cases you've participated in, you've demonstrated excellent planning and analytical abilities, and you also have a Beyander item and the ability to disappear, so is there any problem with you leading the team this time?" Captain Dunn looked at Kornli. "No, Captain." Kornli said, "Thank you for your trust. Klein, you go call Fry, I'll go get 30782. Captain Dunn stood up, turned and walked down the stairs, and soon came back dragging a golden gleaming emblem in his hand, which he handed to Kornli. According to the time, you probably won't be able to return tonight. Captain Dunn glanced at the time. Klein, on your way out, stop by your home and let your family know you're safe. Okay, Captain. The influence range of 3072 is 15 meters, and the maximum duration is 6 hours. Captain Dunn instructed, before 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, I expect your telegram. If not, the entire team will rush over. Okay, Captain. Kornli wore the mutated Sun Holy emblem on his chest and also requisitioned 80 demon-breaking bullets from the armory to carry with him. 80 demon-breaking bullets. Fry stared dumbfounded as Kornli loaded 10 drum magazines onto himself. Do we need to bring that many? What if we encounter a ghost army? Kornli smiled in response, handed 2 drum magazines each to Klein and Fry, and carried the remaining ones himself. We can go now. 2.5 hours, Kornli and I will take turns driving. Fry took a deep breath. We should arrive there at least by 10 p.m. tonight. What do you want to eat? You can tell me on the way. Large intestine sandwich. Kornli answered first. Fry nodded in agreement, and turned his gaze to Klein, hoping to get the same answer from him. Klein, you two heretics. I'll just have a regular bacon sandwich. Klein sighed and followed Kornli into the carriage. In the evening, Kornli slowly drove the carriage into LotM town, stopping at the only restaurant and inn in the town. Klein and Fry got out of the carriage, stretching their somewhat numb legs, allowing the crimson moonlight to shine on the three of them. 2 hours and 27 minutes. Kornli walked into the inn, requested 3 rooms, chatted with the owner for a few minutes, obtained the exact location of the ancient castle, and then came out to tell the other 2. We have a maximum of 50 minutes for searching today. After this time, we will encounter problems, Kornli said, pointing to the east side of LotM town. That ancient castle is in that direction. We must reach the woods on the south side of LotM town in 50 minutes. Everyone must rest for at least 2 hours to ensure 30782 has enough usage time. You are the captain of this mission. We will listen to you, Klein said without hesitation. Fry said nothing. As a corpse collector, he was the first to walk ahead of the 2, taking on the simple reconnaissance task. The 3 men in black trench coats slowly walked up the mountain along a path trampled by nearby villagers. An ancient castle, with most of its walls damaged and moss and withered branches covering the remaining half, appeared before them. Kornli stopped, observing what should have been Mr. Azek's castle in one of his lives. Although only half of the scorched tower remained, its spire still soared into the sky, and behind those broken iron railings, dozens of servants must have once been busy with his family's livelihood. A night wind blew, and the hairs on Kornli's forearms stood on end. The August wind was already so bone-chilling, which clearly defied common sense. Fry turned his head, met Kornli's gaze, and nodded heavily. There are indeed wraiths here, and it seems there's more than one. It's fine, just 1 or 2 wraiths. Kornli stepped forward, walking beside Fry, shielding Klein behind him. Perhaps sensing the presence of wraiths around them, the mutated Sun Holy emblem emitted waves of warm light, enveloping the 3. Feeling this heartwarming power, the 3 continued forward. Look, that should be the stable, Fry said. Judging by its size, it could hold at least 6 or 8 warhorses. A whimpering sound came from inside the stable. As if enraged by the light, a wraith in black armor walked out of the stable, drawing a dark 2-handed greatsword from behind him, dragging it on the ground as he strode towards Fry and the others. A layer of white quickly appeared in Fry's eyes. This was the power of a corpse collector, which allowed him to quickly identify the weaknesses of ghosts, wraiths, and spiritual entities by determining their species, thereby defeating them swiftly. It was a very practical ability, but it required some time. Klein raised his revolver with his right hand. Kornli immediately reached out his right hand to stop him from firing, his eyes turning slightly red. Stop. You don't even recognize me, you low-level servant. 2 sharp black lights emerged from the eye slits of the wraith's helmet. He quickly threw his black greatsword to the ground, stopping 20 meters from Kornli, and knelt on one knee, a rumbling sound coming from inside his armor. Klein. Pretending to be the Wraith's master, you're trying to trick a ghost. A slight smile appeared at the corner of Kornli's mouth. He just wanted to see if the swindler's ability worked well on Wraiths. He didn't expect it to work just as well. He casually took the mutated Sun Holy emblem from his chest and placed it in Klein's hand. The latter understood and took a few steps forward, enveloping the Wraith opposite him within a 15-meter radius. Before I left you with a sacred task. Use your limited brain to think carefully. What exactly was that task? Kornli sternly said to the Wraith. Making a Wraith use its brain, does your conscience truly not hurt? Klein suppressed a laugh, watching the Wraith opposite him rack its brains in agony because it couldn't remember the damned task. And time mercilessly ticked by, second by second, with Kornli's continuous urging. Time's up, Kornli snapped his fingers deftly. No Wraith or ghost could survive for more than a minute under the illumination of the mutated Sun Holy emblem. The Wraith suddenly raised its head when Kornli said those words, seemingly recognizing that Kornli was not his master. He forcefully pushed off with his right foot, as if wanting to use his last strength to grab Kornli's neck. Clang! His body turned into a cloud of mist amidst the sudden burst of light from 30782, dissipating into the air, leaving only his iron gauntlet falling onto the rocky ground with a clanging sound. A layer of white mist quickly formed on the gauntlet, as if covered by a white handkerchief. Ah, your ability for tricking ghosts is indeed a bit. Fry rolled his eyes helplessly. Well done. I know, Kornli said with a smile. I know. Kornli took out 2 iron boxes and placed the iron gauntlet inside. Klein's eyes looked at the steps connecting the distant castle door and hall, and a sense of danger suddenly arose in his heart. Something over there seemed to be attracting him. Kornli took out his pocket watch and checked the time. 20 minutes had passed, leaving only half an hour. Last half an hour, Kornli whispered. We can investigate 1, at most 2 more places. That area connected by the steps makes me feel apprehensive, Klein said. Try a divination. Kornli glanced at Klein. The latter nodded, unfastened his citrine pendant from his wrist, and held it suspended in the air, pondering the divination terms he should use. In an instant, his eyes turned dark, and invisible breezes swirled around him. Exploring the hidden location of the ancient castle will be smooth. Exploring the hidden location of the ancient castle will be smooth. The citrine pendant began to rotate slowly counterclockwise, then faster and faster, faster and faster. Whoosh! The citrine pendant flew out from Klein's wrist. The silver chain connecting the pendant to Klein's arm suddenly straightened, catching Klein off guard and pulling him into a tumble. Such a strong reaction. Counterclockwise, Klein patted the dust off his body, reached out and took Kornli's extended right hand. It's very fast. There's something inside, and it's very terrifying. Fry, can you feel it? Kornli asked. I feel like that staircase isn't just a staircase, it's more like a sealed door, locking whatever is inside, Fry said, frowning as he approached the staircase, investigating it with his familiar methods, then regretfully shaking his head. Time is running out. Kornli straightened up. Follow me. The 3 descended the mountain along the original path. Kornli found a tree hollow in the part of the small forest on the south side near the mountain. This spot was a 10-minute walk from the inn in Lamud town. I'll take the first watch. You 2 go back and rest, Kornli said. All right, I'll pick you up in 2 hours. Fry nodded and returned to the town with Klein. It was very quiet here. Kornli leaned against the wall and sat down, waiting for 10 minutes, estimating that Klein and Fry had already returned to the inn to rest. Then he quickly got up and followed the road back to the entrance of the old castle. It took 12 minutes to get from here to the entrance of the old castle, and it would take another 12 minutes to go back, plus the 10 minutes he had just waited. He would have at most 1 hour and 28 minutes left to deal with the monster under the stairs. If the monster underground was truly as he had imagined. Kornli quietly walked towards the steps, his teeth gently clattering, and opened his spirit vision. On one of the stone steps of the staircase, a faint red light flickered around a brown stone. It seemed this was the switch. Kornli looked left and right, found a 1-meter-long branch, and forcefully smashed it onto the gray stone step, using the force of the impact to quickly jump to the other side, using the steps to block most of his body. Click, 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 click. The steps rhythmically sank down one by one, forming a downward passage, and a row of 4 neat arrows shot out from within with a rapid whooshing sound, flying swiftly through the air. A mechanism, or a creature inside. Kornli gently exhaled. If he, or Klein, or Fry had rashly opened the mechanism just now, those 4 rapid arrows would have had a high chance of piercing 1 or 2 holes through their bodies. Mortal, why disturb the peace here? A tyrannical voice intruded into Kornli's mind. He endured the headache and looked around. A gray-black figure floated in the sky above his head, about 20 meters away from him. Exactly beyond the attack range of the mutated Sun Holy Emblem. Speak, otherwise, death. It did not move. A gray-black smoke appeared from its body, forming a giant right hand made of bones, grabbing Kornli's neck and easily lifting his body into the air. How can I speak when you do this to me? Kornli tightly gripped the black bone hand with both hands, squeezing out 2 words from between his teeth. Azek Eggers. The bone hand vanished with a bang from Kornli's collar. Kornli fell to the ground out of thin air. He grimaced and glanced at the gray-black figure in the sky, then pointed at the ground in front of him. Come down and talk. It's too high, my neck will be uncomfortable. Do you truly know His Excellency, the Death Consul? The voice came again in Kornli's mind, this time with a hint of confusion and bewilderment. Where is he? The gray shadow descended in front of Kornli. Feeling the 30792 on his chest, it retreated another 10 meters, always maintaining a distance of 20 meters from Kornli. Kornli took out Mr. Azek's library card from his pregnant and threw it to the opposite side. A familiar aura on it made the opposite side go wild. You really know him, really? Where is the Death Consul now? Tell me, tell me. A barrage of information rushed into Kornli's head, like having a long loaf of bread forcibly stuffed into his mouth. Shouldn't you introduce yourself first, otherwise, what should I tell Mr. Azek? Good afternoon, Mr. Azek. I met a wraith who said he knew you, and it seems your relationship with him is quite good. I apologize, I've been dead for too long and have forgotten the proper etiquette of the human world. The gray-black mist in front of Kornli shrank into a ball, and a tall lady's armor appeared from within. At her waist was a 2-handed sword that looked exactly like the wraith they had just jointly eliminated. A tight black one-piece armor revealed her originally beautiful figure. She raised both hands and took off her helmet. A mass of black mist gathered where her head should have been, and 2 red lights emanated from the eye sockets, scanning Kornli up and down. Death Knight Grace Tully of the 1st Scout Squad, 2nd Legion, under the command of Death, salutes your excellency. Where is your head? The existence of a head is no longer necessary the moment one transforms into a Death Knight. Grace seemed to be able to sense Kornli's thoughts. With a wave of her right hand, Mr. Azek's library card, imbued with the aura of death, slowly flew from her hand towards Kornli. Kornli reached out and caught it, stuffing it into his inner pocket. He took out his pocket watch and opened it. He still had 54 minutes of free time left. I want to know, what happened here? Before His Excellency, the Death Consul, left, he ordered me to lead a squad to guard this place. He said he was going out to find his memories, but, the black mist on Grace's head swayed slowly twice, as if shaking her head. He forgot, didn't he? Kornli took a step back, controlling the distance between them to about 20 meters. I have guarded here for 312 years, without waiting for the return of His Excellency, the Death Consul. You are the only one who knows him. Grace's voice in Kornli's mind dropped slightly. Is His Excellency in good health? He's very good, but he's forgotten his memories again, and he's also forgotten his agreement with you. Kornli found a stone nearby and sat down. Grace's body moved forward 2 steps, still maintaining a distance of 20 meters. What happened here? What's inside? That is the consul's secret, we are merely ordered to guard this place, Grace said. Over 300 years have passed, and lacking the aura of the underworld, the souls of the squad members have dissipated one by one. The aura of death on them is no longer controlled. If there is blood, or rituals, or the power of death present, it can easily be sensed by the surrounding living beings. Damn, so that's how it is. Since you know him, can you take me to find the Death Consul? Grace's eyes emitted strong red light. To serve under the Death Consul again is my lifelong wish. I am willing to offer you the same lifelong loyalty as to the Death Consul. Crack. Grace knelt on one knee, her right fist striking her chest heavily, causing her entire armor to rattle. I'm sorry, I cannot fulfill this wish. Kornli glanced at his pocket watch. 30 minutes had passed, and he should probably head back soon. It was presumptuous of me. Grace's voice was filled with a hint of desolation. You can tell him about this yourself. Kornli stood up from the stone, patting the dust off himself. I believe he'll be very happy. Grace suddenly looked up, completely disbelieving Kornli's words. You heard right, but there are some things I need you to arrange in advance. Kornli looked up at the night sky. You probably have a few hours left. As you wish, my dear sir. Grace knelt on one knee. Half an hour later, Kornli returned to the woods, clapped his hands, and walked towards the cave. Just as he entered the cave, he saw Fry coming from the other side. Where did you go? Fry looked at Kornli curiously. Solving a personal problem, Kornli said. We can't let the smell taint this uninhabited cave we finally found. Kornli was right. There are no snakes nearby, but I seem to hear the sound of some animal activity. Kornli took off 30782 and handed it to Fry. I'm going back first. Okay, bring me a cup of coffee tomorrow, Fry shouted at Kornli's departing back. 2 sugars. Kornli waved his left hand twice without looking back, indicating that he understood. Returning to the hotel, he sighed with relief and asked the still-awake hotel owner for a cup of black tea with milk and brown sugar. He used this evening drink to relax his nerves, which had been tense all day. Hey, you're back. Klein pushed the door open from outside and sat down in the seat opposite him. There's something I must tell you, but you'd better not tell Fry or the other members of the team. This matter concerns Mr. Azek, whom we all know. Oh, it's coming, it's coming. You mean you suspect that the portrait in the scoundrel Gray's house is Mr. Azek himself? Kornli pretended to be shocked. This is a big discovery. Yes, otherwise it wouldn't be so similar, Klein said. Even the position of the black mole on his right ear is exactly the same. When I returned the book last time, Mr. Azek told me that his memory seemed to have some problems, and if I found anything about his past life anywhere, I should tell him. Kornli said, pondering. Mr. Azek also told me the same thing, Klein said. I owe him a favor, and it's time to repay it. Okay, you go rest for 2 hours. In 2 hours, you'll need to relieve Fry from guarding, 30782. He wants a cup of coffee with sugar. Kornli took out his pocket watch and looked at the time. Hurry up, I'll go up to rest after I drink a cup of milk tea. Klein nodded, took the key, and went upstairs to rest. Kornli unhurriedly drank 2 cups of milk tea, then went upstairs and entered the room next to Klein's. After a full rotation of shifts, 3.5 hours later, Kornli brought a large cup of coffee and relieved Klein, giving everyone an additional 6 hours of free time. In 4 hours, have Fry come and take my place. I need to send a telegram to Captain Dunn. When evening comes, we'll go check again. This time, we'll open that underground secret room, Kornli said. Okay, I understand. At 9:45, Kornli walked into the town's only telegraph office, briefly noted his discovery on a piece of paper, and then handed it to the telegraph operator. Sir, are you sure you want to send this? The telegraph operator looked at Kornli with confusion. Is there a problem? Kornli looked at the telegraph operator with even more confusion. No, it's 3 sol and 4 pence in total. The telegraph operator extended a soft, small hand, gently robbing Kornli's money bag a little. 40 words, 1 pence per word, I finally know what you meant by that last sentence. Kornli took out his money bag, pulled out 3 sol and 4 pence, and handed them to the telegraph operator. Please give me a receipt, thank you. I will definitely get this money reimbursed. A few minutes later, Captain Dun's reply arrived, with only a single word, good. In the evening, Kornli, who had already completed another shift, returned to the old castle with Klein and Fry. In Kornli's eyes, the large door leading to the underground slowly opened, and Fry led the way inside. A group of bats flew out with a rustling sound. There was an unusually thick layer of dust on the ground. 4 skeletons lay twisted and scattered on the ground, still holding bows and arrows, but with the footsteps of the 3, everything turned into a pile of white bone dust with a slight tremor. May you rest in peace. Kornli drew the starry dots representing the goddess on his chest, and Klein and Fry did the same. Fry walked ahead, his eyes scanning everything in the room, which was less than 100 square meters. The dilapidated tables and chairs, the decayed cloth, and the rusty torches hanging on the walls all indicated that no one had entered here for a very long time. No anomaly. Fry walked out, pinching his nose, and took deep breaths of the fresh evening air. Kornli and Klein exchanged glances, then also walked out and restored the mechanism to its original state. Strange, the divination shouldn't have been an error. Klein frowned, pondering the divination result from that day. There's only one possibility. After we left yesterday, whatever was inside has already left. Kornli said, it seems the problem here has been resolved. You're right. Fry looked at the dilapidated old castle. There won't be anything left in here. Those bats must be the only residents. All right, Kornli is correct. Klein accepted Kornli's explanation. Let's go. In 2.5 hours, we can be back in Tingen City. Let's go. Fry led the way towards the carriage down the mountain. Kornli walked last, casting an unintentional glance at the second-floor window of the old castle. A dark figure stood behind the broken window, nodding slightly at him. Grace Tully, see you in 2 days. The journey home always felt particularly fast. 2 hours and 10 minutes later, the 3 had returned to the team headquarters. Captain Dunn first sent 30782 back to the Chinese gate, then listened to Kornli, Klein, and Fry's report while smoking his pipe. You all did a good job, Captain Dunn nodded. Very good. Now, all of you need a day of rest, especially Klein. Okay, Captain Dunn. Klein nodded. The last step of being acting Captain Dunn is writing the report, Kornli. Captain Dunn smiled. You know where the typewriter is. Ah, Captain Dunn, you didn't tell me about this. Fry smiled and patted Kornli's shoulder. I'm really missing my coffin covered with cashmere blankets right now. You guy. Kornli, his face darkening, watched Fry walk out of Captain Dunn's room, then resignedly walked into the team's room and began typing the report with a clatter. The last wraith has been completely dispelled. Kornli finished the last word of his report with satisfaction, then stood up and delivered it to Captain Dunn's desk. Very good. Captain Dunn picked up the report, quickly scanned it from top to bottom, then filed it. Good night, Kornli. Good night, Captain. The next morning, Kornli arrived early at the 2-story building next to the Hoi University Library. It wasn't until 10 o'clock that Kornli saw Isaac Eggers slowly walking down the stairs. He was wearing a brown trench coat and carrying 2 large history books, seemingly having just come from the library. Good morning, Mr. Kornli. Mr. Isaac was surprised to see Kornli standing at the entrance of his office. You've come very early. Do you have any questions you need me to answer? Good morning, Mr. Isaac. Kornli took off his hat. I have no questions. On the contrary, I already have the answer to your question. A glimmer of joy, excitement, and disbelief appeared in Mr. Isaac's eyes. He quickly walked 2 steps forward, opened his office door with a key, and invited Kornli inside. Could you please elaborate? The more detailed, the better. Don't miss a single detail. I apologize, but language cannot describe everything I saw. I believe you should come and see it with me, Kornli said. Today is my rare day off this week. All right. Mr. Azek nodded decisively, placed the books on his desk, and the two walked out of the Hoi University campus and boarded a private carriage, one after the other. To Lamud Town, Kornli told the coachman before getting in the carriage. As fast as possible. Sir, Lamud Town is at least 2.5 hours from here. The coachman was about to refuse when a £1 banknote was extended in front of him. By the hour. For these coachmen, a pound in hand meant everything was negotiable. Please sit tight. The coachman smilingly accepted the pound, waved his whip in the air, and the two horses slowly started, heading towards the northeast city gate of Tingen City. Lamud Town. Mr. Azek leaned against the carriage window, watching the vast forest slowly appear before them. The rapid waters of the Tasok River crashed against both banks, like a giant dragon hidden beneath the water, occasionally raising its head to scrutinize the two people inside the carriage. I have no impression of it at all. Mr. Azek shook his head. What exactly did you discover there? Kornli said nothing, taking out a Fasak Empire cigar from his pocket. He gently twisted off the tip with his right thumb and forefinger, then took out a match from his pocket, struck it against his boot to light it, and handed both the cigar and the flame to Mr. Azek. The two men silently smoked their cigars face to face, no words exchanged. Kornli was very glad at this moment that he had bought these two cigars from the shop when he came, otherwise, the 2-hour journey would have been very difficult to endure. I've forgotten too many things, Mr. Azek sighed, allowing the aroma of the cigar to fill the carriage. 2.5 hours later, the carriage stopped at the foot of the mountain. From the moment Mr. Azek could see the ancient castle in the distance, his eyes had been fixed on every foundation stone that made up the castle. As soon as the carriage stopped, he eagerly jumped out and rushed towards the mountaintop without a pause. Wait for me here, Kornli instructed the coachman, then closely followed Mr. Azek's steps, running towards the ancient castle on the mountaintop. He had to exert all his strength to keep up with Mr. Azek, who seemed unusually familiar with the environment here, each step landing precisely where it should. It was as if the path beneath their feet had been trodden out by him, step by step. I've been here. Mr. Azek looked at the courtyard not far away, and a wave of confusion once again appeared in his eyes. No, I built this place. That's the stable. I used to keep 6 warhorses there, and each of them followed me for several years. Mr. Azek excitedly pointed with his hand to the place where Kornli first encountered the wraith. Kornli stood beside him, silently nodding. At this moment, he needed to act as a good listener, and nothing more. That's the training ground. Those poles are swings I personally made for my child, and there were also wooden toys. Every time I played with Harvey, she would always stand silently by the second-floor window, watching us with a smile, and instructing the servants to prepare sweet tea and biscuits for us. No, Anna. Harvey, my son. Mr. Azek knelt on the ground, grabbing the dust with trembling hands and burying his face deep within it. Forgetting memories is painful, but forgetting one's loved ones is even more cruel than forgetting memories. Kornli stepped forward, gently placing his right hand on Mr. Azek's shoulder, offering him the warmth a human should provide with his body temperature. The sun shone on the two men, casting 2 long shadows behind them. Thank you. After a long while, Mr. Azek lifted his dust-covered face, stood up wearily, and walked forward, pushing open the dilapidated wooden door and looking up at the sky. 1/3 of the ancient castle's second floor had already collapsed, and the wooden stairs leading upstairs had completely rotted away. It was impossible for an ordinary person to reach the second floor using only their own strength. Azek looked upstairs, his eyes filled with melancholy. He turned to look at the steps he had come from, and his eyes lit up. There should still be something here, Mr. Azek said softly. Click. He skillfully opened the secret room that Kornli had opened the day before yesterday and walked down. His right hand casually pressed a spot on the wall, and light reappeared in the dilapidated torches, illuminating the entire room brightly. I once placed something here, Mr. Azek murmured to himself. It seemed very important. A dark figure flew in at high speed from outside, landing in front of Mr. Azek. The heavy armor clanged against the ground. Grace Tully knelt on one knee, striking her armor with her right fist. Death Knight Grace Tully, 1st Scout Squad of the 2nd Army under Death, reporting to Your Excellency, Death Consul. It's been 312 years. Are you well? Kornli stood quietly to the side, watching Mr. Azek and his former subordinate meet for the first time after more than 300 years, his heart filled with emotion. Death Consul. It's me, I am the Death Consul. A faint green light emanated from Mr. Azek's eyes as he looked around. A strong, thick, suffocating gray-black aura of death filled the entire basement. The surrounding dust continuously dispersed, and a 2-meter-tall door of death, made of white bones, quickly appeared on the opposite wall. Kornli looked at the grand door curiously. A hint of blood-red light shone on the white bones, highlighting the door's uniqueness. One of the 9 great doors of the underworld, Mr. Azek's eyes were filled with nostalgic emotion. He extended his right hand and gently traced a line in the air before him. The door was instantly filled with a gray-red mist, and countless skeletal arms emerged from the ground where the door stood, extending their hands forward and prostrating themselves devoutly before Mr. Azek. I remember burying Harvey's bones near the door. Mr. Azek stepped forward, his feet treading on the white bones. He slightly raised his left hand, and a pure white skeleton was slowly lifted out of the door by the skeletons inside. His brows instantly furrowed. The broken corpse had no skull. Mr. Azek roared silently towards the sky. A massive amount of black energy surged out from his body, turning everything in the room to ash. Grace unhesitatingly stood up and shielded Kornli. Both of them were pressed against the wall by this black power of death, unable to move for a long time. Who is it? Mr. Azek's eyes turned crimson. The thief's actions had pushed his anger to its limit. The surrounding ground slowly trembled under this power of death. All the buried bones in the underground slowly appeared at this moment, forcefully pushing away the thick layer of soil on themselves, and slowly walking towards here, or dragging their broken bodies to crawl towards here. Thank you. Kornli politely thanked Grace, who was in front of him. A faint red light flashed in her eyes, seemingly completely indifferent to her recent action. His power has weakened. A trace of puzzled yellow light emanated from Grace's eyes as she spoke in Kornli's mind. Mr. Azek. Kornli raised his right hand, pointing to Grace beside him. The light in Mr. Azek's eyes gradually diminished, and the power of death in the basement also weakened accordingly. The surrounding bones instantly lost the power of death that guided them, turning back into white bones and scattering on the ground. Sorry, I finally recovered a part of my memory, but I'm afraid it really is only a part. Mr. Azek grinned, drawing 2 profound symbols in the air before him with his right hand. 2 chairs made of white bones formed in front of the 2 of them. He walked over, forcefully pulled Kornli out of the wall, and seated him on the chair opposite him. Grace, long time no see. Mr. Azek nodded to Grace. With a gentle touch of his right hand, Grace's head appeared out of thin air. Bones, blood vessels, and muscles slowly formed on her body. A few minutes later, a brown-haired, blue-eyed beauty, nearly 1 meter 80 tall, with a full figure and wearing tight armor, stood between the 2 of them. You stripped me of my Death Knight identity. Grace knelt on one knee, 2 tears appearing in the corners of her eyes. Noble Death Consul, you no longer need my service. You are the last Death Knight. The underworld has not been at war for hundreds of years. Whether Death Knights still need to exist, I need to reconsider. During this time, you will resume your duties as a gatekeeper and continue to guard this door of the underworld, Mr. Azek said. The other party's strength was actually a Sequence 5 gatekeeper. As you command, Death Consul. Grace breathed a sigh of relief, but she did not get up. Consul, I once swore that if this gentleman could bring me back to you, I would pledge the same loyalty to him as I do to you. Please allow this. That's not a problem. Mr. Azek sighed. I'm afraid we two have a lot to talk about, Mr. Kornli. Of course, dear Mr. Azek, Kornli said, may we drop the honorifics between us. After all, in terms of knowledge, you are my elder. All right, Kornli, you just learned a lot of things, but there was no surprise on your face. May I know why? That's because I know many things, perhaps some things even you don't know. Kornli took out another cigar, lit it, and handed it to Mr. Azek, while he lit a rolled cigarette for himself. Praise the goddess. He drew the twinkling stars representing the Evernight goddess across his chest, quietly looking at Mr. Azek. You are her. Mr. Azek was startled, the Evernight goddess's messenger. I have my own mission, Kornli said, but you guessed correctly. By the goddess's name, I swear that I have no designs on your underworld. If I break my oath, the night will tear open my body, the demonic wolf will devour my soul, and everything of mine will cease to exist in this world. Kornli raised his right hand and made a vicious oath. A thick black mist arose out of thin air around him, circled him once, and then slowly sank into the ground. I believe you. Mr. Azek nodded. From the beginning of our acquaintance, your attitude towards me has been extremely sincere. I believe you have no designs, but Klein is my mission, Kornli said. After I learned about your matters in Tingen City, if possible, I would like to borrow some of your power. He laid out his purpose completely, and the goddess's power was still around him. Although he was not very suitable for revealing too much, under the dual influence of the Evernight goddess and the Death Consul, it should not be a big deal to reveal a little of his purpose. This is what I saw in Klein and you, the result of your two fates intertwining. Mr. Azek smiled. Everything makes sense now. So, you found a part of your memory. What do you plan to do next? I will go find the fellow who stole my son's skull, and then throw his soul into the underworld, letting the venomous flames of the underworld burn his soul every day. Mr. Azek took a deep breath and said, at least for 100 years. I do know who did this, Kornli said. I also know where to find him. Mr. Azek did not speak. He silently smoked his cigar, pondering some things. I know what you are planning, Kornli suddenly said. Before, you were Mr. Alzuhad, and I was Mr. Kornli White. Our help to each other was mutual assistance between friends. But today, after revealing our true identities to each other, we will overthink every word, and even every action, wondering if they represent other deeper meanings. This is something I am unwilling to see. If you were still Mr. Alzuhad and I was still Kornli, I believe our interactions would be much more relaxed. I was overthinking it. Mr. Alzuhad leaned slightly forward and extended his right hand. I sincerely hope that we can maintain that pure friendship between us. Kornli extended his right hand and shook Mr. Alzuhad's hand firmly. The fellow who took your son's ashes is named Ins Zangwil, one of the 13 archbishops of the Evernight Goddess Church. He has defected, and he possesses a sealed artifact, 008, the Quill of Alzuhad. Mr. Alzuhad listened patiently. Grace, at Kornli's signal, sat on the back of her chair, quietly and patiently listening to Kornli's explanation. In her impression, the mysterious and terrifying Death Consul usually sat quietly on his armchair in the underworld, watching his priests lead their subordinates in strange dances, or leading his legions to conquer small nations. No one had ever been able to sit opposite him and chat calmly with him. Perhaps, this is a good thing for the Death Consul who has regained a part of his memory. A Sequence 5 gatekeeper, Mr. Alzuhad pinched his chin, deep in thought. Do you know where he is, my dear Kornli? I'm not sure, Kornli shook his head. The Quill of Alzuhad is completely immune to divination. Even Klein's divination cannot pinpoint his location. However, I will know that at a certain point in time, he will definitely be there, Kornli said. We can use that time to set a trap. Mr. Alzuhad nodded, agreeing with Kornli's idea. I will cooperate with your actions, but in the most important part. I know, Kornli nodded heavily. I will not deprive you of your right to take revenge. Then, what do you want? Mr. Alzuhad said. You've given me a memory, a chance for revenge, a gift, and the precious friendship of a friend. As a friend, I strongly urge you to ask for a suitable return gift. How about a messenger? Kornli chuckled. I know you have many messengers under your command. With a Sequence 8's spirituality, you should be able to accommodate a messenger, right? Yes, Mr. Alzuhad said. What kind of messenger do you need? A fast one, or one with other abilities? If it has other abilities, that would be even better. I wonder if a messenger like Rhinette Tinacare can be found. Kornli was lost in thought when Grace stood up. I wonder if I would have the honor of serving as your messenger. A gatekeeper can freely traverse between the spirit world and the real world. If the console allows me to guard and utilize this door, my speed won't be much slower than those races renowned for their speed in the void. I had forgotten. Grace was a Death Knight before, and her warhorse still exists. A Death Knight with a Death Warhorse can freely travel between the spirit world and the real world, and she herself possesses considerable offensive power, Mr. Alzuhad chuckled. Is that acceptable? She is currently the only subordinate under my command known for her speed. Of course, of course. Kornli was overjoyed. Then, please, Mr. Alzuhad, help us to establish a contract. All right. Mr. Alzuhad drew two profound symbols in the air with his right hand. A 1-meter-long piece of paper appeared out of thin air, with tiny, spirit world languages, writing detailed clauses upon it. Finally, a symbol representing spirit world flames and death was carved onto it. Former Death Knight Grace Tully, are you willing to serve as Mr. Kornli White's messenger in the future, protect his safety, become his loyal friend, subordinate, and a link between the Evernight goddess and death? I am willing. Grace Tully unhesitatingly reached into her eye socket and used her soul as ink to sign her name on the contract. Kornli was taken aback. This was quite different from the messenger contract he was familiar with. Mr. Alzuhad made a circle in midair with his hand. The contract rotated 180 degrees towards Kornli. The text on it changed to Hermes, which Kornli was familiar with. The content was exactly the same as what Mr. Alzuhad had just said, with one additional identity. Death Speaker. Mr. Alzuhad, what is the identity of a Death Speaker? It sounds very noble, Kornli asked. It's a war priest identity. If you ever need it in the future, I can lend you a few hundred skeleton soldiers to attack some small tribes for fun, Mr. Alzuhad chuckled. Consider it my extra gratitude to you. You are too kind. It's already a great honor to have Ms. Grace serve as my messenger. Kornli no longer hesitated and signed his name in the lower right corner of the contract. In the name of the Death Consul, this contract is established, Mr. Alzuhad said in a steady voice. The contract spontaneously ignited without wind, splitting into two copies, which entered Kornli and Grace's nostrils. Kornli's mind was filled with Grace's abilities. Not only did she possess combat and offensive capabilities beyond ordinary people, but she was also proficient in all dark magic below Nightwatcher, making her a versatile individual. A scout needs strong survival skills. One who hasn't undergone enough baptism of war cannot take on this sacred position, Mr. Alzuhad chuckled. Lord Death Speaker. Grace reached out and broke off a small piece of bone from the bone seat, fashioning it into a bone whistle, which she handed to Kornli. Blow this whistle to summon me. Kornli nodded. Here, take this. Mr. Alzuhad took out a piece of black cloth from his pregnant and threw it to Grace. You know how to use it. Yes, Lord Death Consul. Grace took the cloth, nodded to Kornli, and walked into the 2-meter-high bone door. The soul fire in her eyes flickered. As long as I find the things on this, I can advance again. Let's go. Mr. Alzuhad stood up and gently waved his left hand. The bone door disappeared before them. Everything in the room, including the two exquisite bone chairs beneath their buttocks, also turned to ashes. The two walked out of the ancient castle. The ground around them was covered in white bone ash, both human and animal. The carriage parked at the foot of the distant mountain had disappeared, apparently frightened away by the anomaly just now. Calculating by the rental, it seemed he had lost a few souls. The two of them rented another carriage back to Tingen City. On the carriage, their conversation flowed much more smoothly, but from Mr. Azik's occasional glances out the window, Kornli believed he seemed to have unearthed something more from the long river of his memories. I won't be going too far away for a while, Mr. Azik said with a smile. All appear as agreed. With the coachman present, Mr. Azik didn't say too much, but Kornli knew that he had successfully latched onto Mr. Azik's leg, and Please don't tell Klein what happened today for now. He doesn't need to know these things yet, Kornli whispered. I'll choose a suitable time to tell him in the next few months. Mr. Azik's eyes showed a hint of confusion, but he nodded without hesitation. At 9:30 p.m., Kornli saw Mr. Azik home, then returned to his own house, made a simple dinner, took a shower, and quietly went to sleep. The next morning, Kornli used the excuse of going out to buy breakfast sandwiches with Klein, took him out, and told him about his outing with Mr. Azik yesterday. Ah, you didn't take me along for something like this. Klein looked annoyed when he learned that Kornli had gone to find Mr. Azik by himself. Ah, Mr. Azik meant there was no need for all three of us to be so tired, Kornli said, spreading his hands. I happened to see him in the library yesterday morning when I went to return books. You know, the library card he gave me is still with me. What was Mr. Azik's reaction? He was very bewildered, or rather, very lost, Kornli said. It exceeded our imagination. He said he might leave Tingen City once or twice during this period and would write to both of us when he returned. All right, that's certainly something Mr. Azik would do, Klein said, taking the paper bag containing sausage and smoked fish sandwiches, and walking back with Kornli. It seems I don't have to consider spending a day in Lamud town for now. This is good too. He still has to prepare for the Tarot Club on Monday. Now there are 3 people, Sun, Hanged Man, and Miss Justice. And Miss Justice also said that she has 2 companions whose character is trustworthy, so they should also be able to be pulled into the Tarot Club. He wondered if his spirituality would be enough for so many people to gather. It wouldn't be fun if his spirituality ran out halfway through the meeting. Only 1 person can be added at most per time. Yes, that's how it is. Kornli pulled Klein away. This guy didn't know what he was thinking. His forehead was about to make intimate contact with the door frame, and he didn't even know to dodge. We're at the office. Give me the bag. Here's your smoked fish one. Kornli took the paper bag and handed the other sandwich to Klein. Oh, Klein took his sandwich with a bewildered expression, only then realizing what was happening. Luo Yao walked into the room and saw the 2 of them eating sandwiches while reading newspapers. Their sitting posture, the speed at which they turned newspaper pages, and the direction their teacup handles were placed were all identical, which made him chuckle. You 2 really haven't considered being together. Kornli and Klein both looked up at Luo Yao with innocent expressions, then simultaneously noticed that they were both wearing black tailcoats and semi-top hats today, and couldn't help but roll their eyes at the same time. In this era, it was simply too difficult for men to find a few completely different sets of clothes. Hey, you're all here, Roseanne walked in from outside. A rich merchant wants 2 days of close protection. 5 gold pounds per person per day. Who's interested? Leonard wasn't here today, Captain Dunn went to the church and wouldn't be back for 2 hours, Zigga was off, Fry was out, so only the 3 of them were in the room. Luo Yao was eager to try but looked at Kornli. Why are you looking at me? Kornli pointed to his face. Is there something on my face? Didn't you go out a few days ago and served as a temporary captain? Luo Yao looked at Kornli. Now that the captain isn't here, this matter is up to you to decide. Ah, there's such a thing. Kornli looked at Roseanne, who spread her hands. Now the team's command sequence includes the captain, Leonard, and you. Why didn't Captain Dunn tell me? Kornli asked instinctively, then saw 2 familiar looks of disdain. Captain Dunn forgot again, didn't he? I thought by now you'd be very familiar with the captain's memory. Acting captain, Luo Yao spread his hands. All right, I'll go listen. Kornli walked out of the room and understood the situation. The other party just wanted 2 people to protect his safety for 2 days, nothing more. Klein performed a divination on this case, and the citrine only rotated a few times, indicating that the risk factor of this matter was very small and completely acceptable. All right, Mr. Scatty Austin, if you insist, I believe we can provide enough manpower. Kornli's eyes were slightly red, slightly exaggerating the possible danger under the swindler's ability, successfully increasing the daily rental fee from 5 gold pounds to 7 gold pounds. So, for 12 hours during the day, we charge 7 gold pounds. What about the night then? You know, humans need to rest at night. We are giving up our precious rest time, so the fee will naturally be a little higher. Okay, is that all, Mr. Scatty? Very good. Welcome to Blackthorn Security Company's services. Kornli shook hands with a bewildered Mr. Scatty, while Roseanne, suppressing a smile, placed a contract in front of Mr. Scatty for 24 hours a day, 10 gold pounds, including 3 meals and accommodation, and then unceremoniously collected 40 gold pounds from the other party at once. Luo Yao and Klein, who had been listening from the next room with admiration, high-fived Kornli as he walked in, each stuffing 2 5 gold pound banknotes into their pockets, then walked out to meet Mr. Scatty. Since he's the vice captain, the opportunities to earn money should be rotated. Ah, huh. Fry looked at Kornli in confusion. I just went out to patrol the cemetery, and 10 gold pounds just slipped through my fingers. A simple 2-day escort mission, and it even includes 3 meals a day. I swear, if it's still up to me, the next non-dangerous mission goes to you, Ziga, and Leonard. Kornli raised his right hand helplessly. Good, Fry said, rubbing his fists. I'm looking forward to it. In the evening, Kornli, after getting off work, did not choose to spend the rest of his day at the divination club as usual, but instead went to the Garcia Detective Agency. He remembered that he still had some unfinished business there. As he had more and more things to think about, his mind was starting to develop in the direction of Captain Dunn, which was not a good thing, Kornli thought tragically. Ah, my dear sir, you have finally arrived. Garcia Detective saw Kornli walk into his office and excitedly put down his feet, which were propped on the table, then pulled out a rolled cigarette from the cigarette box on the table and handed it over. Kornli took it and glanced at the brown paper label on it. This is David Dosty brand tobacco. This small box of rolled cigarettes costs 5 sol. It seems this guy has recently become rich, he can afford such expensive rolled cigarettes now. Thanks to you. Garcia Detective saw Kornli's eyes sweep across the paper label, lit a match, and respectfully held it with both hands to light Kornli's cigarette. Your judgment on Counselor Wilton York was very accurate. According to your description, I bribed a servant in their house, who provided detailed information on how our former counselor purchased those 2 young girls and brought them to their home, as well as the process of sending them away. All of this was, accidentally, recorded by the reporters who were dining next to me. In order not to let Counselor Wilton's matter overshadow the new mayor, he will automatically resign after the mayor takes office. His entire family has already left Tingen City and will not appear in any city in Loan for a while. The new mayor, Aldrich, has already received his letter of resignation. According to my transaction records with those reporters, I earned a total income of 75 gold pounds. Since you provided this information, according to the unwritten rules of our profession, you will receive 50% of the income. Garcia Detective pulled out an envelope from the drawer, carefully counted out 7 brand new 5 gold pound banknotes and 3 1-pound banknotes, and handed them to Kornli with both hands. Ah, calculating this way, the money he spent on hiring him these 2 times not only did not decrease but even had a slight surplus. You are a person who abides by industry rules, and I admire that very much. Kornli looked at the total of 38 gold pounds on the table. This seems a bit much. For the second task you assigned, I regret very much that I could not find a woman exactly matching the portrait, but I thought of a method. Garcia Detective said with a look of shame, you know, 2 nights from now, our new mayor, Aldrich Calvin, will hold a grand dinner ball at the mayor's mansion. If, as you said, this lady wants to enter the political high society of Tingen City, then this ball will be the best stage for her to display her unique charm there. You mean, you want me to attend this ball? Kornli laughed. The new mayor's ball, getting an invitation is not a simple matter. Before he finished speaking, he saw Garcia Detective pull out a gold-edged invitation from the drawer, with the invitee field left blank. This is your invitation. Garcia Detective reached out and pulled 2 1 gold pound banknotes from the money on the table, then closed the just-opened cigarette box and handed it to Kornli. "This is your change. This guy is very smart and knows what I want to do." "Well then, I have never been here." Kornli stood up, putting the remaining 36 gold pounds, the cigarette box, and the invitation into his pocket. "Of course, we have never met, generous sir." Garcia detective stood up and bowed, seeing Kornli off. The new mayor's ball seems like it should be very interesting. The next 2 days, Kornli spent unusually calmly. On the evening of the third day, at 7:30, he changed into a black formal suit, lightly pinched the corners of his eyes a few times, slightly raising the outer corners, combined with deliberately contracted facial muscles, plus 2 fake mustaches bought from a store, he transformed into a completely different person. He hailed a horse-drawn cab, to the mayor's mansion. "All right, sir." The carriage slowly stopped at the entrance of the mayor's mansion. Outside the mansion, many private carriages were parked, all with family crests on their carriages. Many of the crests depicted shields, thorns, and very rare swords. Heraldry is one of the essential courses for entering the upper echelons of this society. A shield represents that there was once a court guard in the family, thorns represent knowledge, and swords prove that there was once a famous or at least known general in the family. Unfortunately, Kornli himself had not learned these things. "Hello, dear sir." The guard politely signaled for the carriage to stop. Kornli opened the window, took out his invitation from his pocket, and handed it to the guard. "Mr. Bruce Wayne, I apologize, I have not heard your name. Are you from the south?" The guard looked at the name on Kornli's invitation very politely, his eyes briefly sweeping over the crest signed on Kornli's invitation, and the corner of his mouth twitched slightly. "How should I interpret the meaning of the little turtle on the crest?" "This gentleman's family once had a 4-legged, slow-crawling animal." "Please come in, sir, please come in." The guard returned the invitation to Kornli, trying to suppress his smile. Based on Kornli's attire, the rented private carriage, and the strange family crest on the invitation, the experienced mayor's guard had already taken Kornli for a young master from a prominent family out to have a good time. Judging from his expensive attire, he was most likely planning an unforgettable, romantic gathering with one or more ladies tonight, something that happens at all balls. The order he received was that any guest with an invitation could enter, and what happened after entering was not within his consideration. Very good. Kornli got out of the carriage, casually slipped a 1 gold pound banknote into the guard's jacket pocket, and walked down from the carriage, holding Fry's cane. In the squad office, Fry's cane was the best made. He borrowed this cane to make an impression at the evening banquet. Rows of colorful small lights illuminated the dazzlingly decorated ballroom with various hues. Flowers bloomed inappropriately at night, perfectly satisfying the appetites of these wealthy gentlemen. Young ladies and madams in formal wear, adorned with silk and sheer masks, danced gracefully in the ballroom, presenting a lively scene. I didn't expect today's event to be a masquerade ball. I didn't notice the details on the invitation, which was really annoying. According to the information I knew, this seemingly novel form of ball had only just begun to emerge in Backlund. Mayor Aldrich Calvin actually had such an interest in bringing this novel method to Tingen City. It seemed it would be very difficult for Kornli to find Mrs. Sharon's appearance today. "Sir." The waiter beside him walked over, with several glasses of champagne and thin, cicada wing-like black and white masks on the tray. Kornli took a glass of champagne and a white mask from it, putting it on, adding a touch of romance to tonight's ball. "I've been watching you for a long time, handsome sir." A familiar voice came from the side. Kornli could hardly believe his ears. The mask he had just put on perfectly concealed his expression. He slowly turned around with immense willpower, looking at the lady who had made that familiar sound. "Mrs. Sharon, it must be her. I had heard her voice outside the Steel Teeth bar once." Kornli forcibly controlled his hands and feet, turning his head to look at the lady beside him, who was slightly shorter than him, wearing an off-the-shoulder lotus root-colored long dress, holding a thin stick with a mask that only covered her eyes in her right hand, looking at Kornli curiously. A rich fragrance emanated from her, and she attracted the attention of the surrounding gentlemen in the dance hall like a vibrant butterfly. Kornli knew that Mrs. Shirley was definitely a black widow spider with patterned spots on her body. Once bitten, he would definitely gain no benefit. Dumb brain, think quickly, what should I do now? Wait, I've got it. Excuse me, madam, your sudden approach has made my life suddenly lose direction. Kornli replied in an overly flattered tone, you stole my carefully prepared lines, causing great damage to my tender heart, which forces me to ask for an opportunity for a private date with you to calm my feelings. You demonists want to prey on younger men, so when I play the scoundrel card, how will you respond, Your Excellency? Mrs. Shirley's eyes sparkled with a captivating gaze. This was the first time she had heard such an unconventional remark, which suddenly raised her guard, she who spent her days among men and women. How annoying, I thought the other party was a pure young man, which made me want to play around, but looking at the other party's response, he used only 4 sentences to push me into a desperate situation, where I had to agree to his date. This was not the kind of person I wanted to play around with. Her mind turned slightly, and she already knew how to refuse the other party's invitation. Of course, my dear Baron Joshua. Mrs. Sharon lightly brushed Kornli's forearm with her elbow, or we could just skip dinner and go straight to dessert. Ah, you old spider, but, Baron Joshua. The other party wanted to escape, and I could just use this opportunity. Excuse me, my dear madam, you must have mistaken me for someone else. Kornli replied in a surprised manner, you are not, excuse me, I am very sorry, I thought you were. This is my first time attending such a masquerade ball, and even so, I am still very happy to meet you. Kornli stepped back, bowed, and kissed Mrs. Sharon's right hand, which was covered by a silk glove. It's a pleasure to meet you. Oh. Mrs. Sharon let out a soft cry. Kornli stepped forward again, gently wrapped his arm around her slender waist, and with a man's wild, undeniable manner, gently pushed aside the eye mask that was blocking her face. Mrs. Sharon seemed startled by Kornli's actions, allowing him to do as he pleased. The soft dance music in the hall covered Mrs. Sharon's soft cry, allowing Kornli to see Mrs. Sharon's appearance in an instant. Indeed, it was exactly like the photograph. Good evening, my dear madam. Kornli gently stroked Mrs. Sharon's cheek with his right hand, whispered a sentence in her ear, and deftly turned and left as her face flushed slightly. Mrs. Sharon gently fanned herself with the folding fan in her hand, seemingly conquered by the other party's masculine actions, her face so flushed that it looked as if red wine could drip from it. This young man is truly interesting. Kornli kept walking forward. Several ladies who had witnessed Kornli's actions just now slowly approached, wanting to strike up a conversation, but Kornli stopped them with a slight shake of his head. He then casually took a glass of champagne from a tray and then took another black mask. Between the fingertips of his right hand, he held a delicate strand of hair he had just taken from Mrs. Sharon's hair. The fragrance on that strand of hair allowed him to easily find Mrs. Sharon's carriage. He quietly passed behind the carriage, inserting a non-toxic crossbow bolt he was carrying into the deck gap of the carriage's rear compartment, and then put on the black mask. The entire process took less than a second. Good, very smooth. Now, I just need to trouble Klein with a little overtime tonight, and I'll know where Mrs. Shirley lives. I just need to go to Klein's house in a moment, ah. His expression changed slightly as he saw a familiar black tuxedo pass by his right side. Klein, wearing a black semi-top hat, followed Mr. Scatty Austin, preparing to enter the ballroom. Klein. Kornli's voice appeared in Klein's ear. The latter turned his head left and right, saw Kornli, who had removed his mask, and was startled. Good evening, Mr. Scatty. Kornli greeted Mr. Scatty, spreading his hands and looking at Klein. You took a private commission. Having completed 2 or 3 missions with Kornli, Klein knew that Kornli didn't care about such things. He nodded. Mr. Scatty needs a temporary protection mission tonight, and I happened to be free, so I took it. Why are you here? Klein glanced around. He was at the new mayor's residence, and an invitation was required to enter. Kornli was truly resourceful, he could even find an invitation that was so difficult to obtain. I'll tell you the details tomorrow. Kornli said softly, if you don't mind, I still have some things to finish, and I can accompany you to complete Mr. Scatty's mission. When I first came in, I noticed the buffet table leaning against the wall. When I just passed by, I smelled the rich aroma of garlic butter baked lobster. You wouldn't mind, would you? Kornli turned to ask Mr. Scatty. Of course, everyone wants free guards. Mr. Scatty nodded, please, my dear sir. Kornli nodded, closely following Mr. Scatty back into the ballroom. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.